I'm Ren, the youngest son of the Villaret Count family. I crossed over into this world and have been living here since birth. My companion spirit pet, the one bound to my contract tome, turned out to be the most ordinary bronze one-star tulip you could imagine. Father even brought in experts to confirm it. Because of that, I became the family's biggest disappointment. To grow stronger and contract more spirit pets, I need to develop my companion pet first. But no matter how many spirit fluids we poured on that tulip, it just wouldn't grow. The only person who never gave up on me is Haya, my personal attendant maid. She's been taking care of me since I was a baby. My mother died shortly after I was born, so Haya practically raised me. She's around 36, beautiful, warm, and always worrying about me. We're very close. Closer than a master and maid should be, honestly. She keeps asking if I'm stressed about the upcoming academy exam and offering to help me relieve pressure. That's just how she is. I kept telling her the tulip actually has its own will. It's been resisting being absorbed into the contract tome, but she didn't believe me. Nobody did. Then, right when Haya and I were about to relieve some stress together, the tulip on the balcony suddenly burst into golden light. A mechanical voice rang in my head. I'd awakened something called the Female Contract Divine Beast Cultivation System. From now on, I can only contract female spirit pets, but in return the system gives me cultivation methods and a special trait-granting function. My tulip jumped to bronze 2-star. That meant my contract tome finally unlocked a second page. I could contract one more spirit pet. And for the first time ever, the tulip had a real skill, empowering petals. Once a day, it drops a petal that can boost another spirit pet's constitution and ability ceiling. Haya and I just stared at the description, stunned. Haya kissed me and immediately asked again if I needed help relieving stress. I accidentally called her Mom in the excitement. She gave me a teasing look and said she's my head maid, not my mother. I tried to explain I don't have a mother complex, but the smile on her face told me she didn't buy it for a second. After that, I decided to test the system's interaction feature. I leaned down and kissed the tulip's petals. The system chimed. The tulip felt shy and happy, and I earned 10 points. I looked closer at the flower. Its golden petals seemed even more vivid than before, trembling slightly under my gaze, as if it wanted to close up from embarrassment but couldn't quite bring itself to stop blooming. I decided to visit my mentor, Selena, to ask for advice. I picked up the tulip pot and told Haya to wait at home. She fixed my collar, kissed my cheek, and sent me off. That woman really knows how to tease me. Walking out of my dormitory building. Yes, as a noble student, I get an entire building to myself, plus a garden and pool. I headed toward the mentor residential area. Nobody bothered me on the way. This world runs on profit, and picking fights without reason is considered pointless and childish, especially at a prestigious place like the Tylo Imperial Beast Academy. Selena's place was even grander, 3 buildings, 8 floors each. Her maids greeted me at the gate and told me she was practicing piano, so I waited in a side hall, sipping tea and listening to her elegant playing. It had that airy, detached quality unique to the elven race. When the music stopped, Selena appeared, silver-white hair, pointed ears, icy blue eyes, dressed in a white elven gown decorated with tiny crystals. 2 butterflies floated on her shoulders, one blue, one white. Those were her contracted spirit pets, gold 9-star Holy Sound twin spirit butterflies. One for attack, one for support. And she had even more pets beyond those. She noticed my tulip immediately and froze. It had leveled up, she could tell. She sent her white butterfly, Little White, to land on the tulip and listen to it. Then Little White spoke in a little girl's voice. Ren, your tulip wants you to kiss her more. I was stunned. Her butterfly could talk and had real intelligence. That meant its potential was incredible. In this world, whether a spirit pet develops sentience is the single most important sign of its value. My tulip's petals blushed even brighter after hearing the butterfly's words, and it nodded slightly, as if shyly confirming the request. Selena was shocked too. She asked Little White to confirm the tulip truly had developed sentience. It had. Then the tulip dropped a golden petal onto Little White as a gift. The blue butterfly, Little Blue, got jealous and called my tulip a stupid flower. Selena scolded her. Don't insult the flower. Then awkwardly corrected herself since she'd almost said, don't insult people. I told Selena my tulip skill seemed support-oriented, so I wanted to contract an attack-type spirit pet next and asked for her recommendation. She sat down gracefully and pointed out that my contract tome is only bronze 2-star right now, which means only bronze 2-star pets would be willing to form a contract with me. She's right. To raise the tome's rank, I have to develop my companion pet first. The higher the tome's level, the stronger the pet's willing to join me. I opened my contract tome in front of Selena and asked for her advice on what kind of spirit pet to contract next. She stretched lazily and laid out my options. Since my tulip is a plant type, a fire type pet would give me the strongest immediate offense. But if I picked a water type or earth type instead, it could form a cycle with the tulip. They'd nurture each other, and I'd go much further in the long run. Her recommendation was a mermaid. Weak in combat at first, but she could nourish my tulip daily, and the tulip could feed her back with its petals. If raised properly, a mermaid can eventually evolve into a gold-rank storm mermaid. She told me the first 3 pets a contract master chooses reveal his true potential. It's not about passing one exam. I bowed and thanked her. Honestly, I was surprised she wanted to help me this much. Being handsome does have its perks. Normally, a mentor just points you in a direction and you figure the rest out yourself. I would have loved a light-type pet, but that meant asking my father for money. My old man has 19 children. I'm number 18. He basically mass-produced kids hoping to hit the jackpot on a genius. In his eyes, my account is a lost cause. Paying my tuition, sending living expenses, and giving me Hea as a companion maid is already generous enough. So I didn't push my luck. Selena said she actually had a small mermaid, but warned me it was a failed experiment. She tried to awaken an ancient bloodline inside the egg before hatching, and something went wrong. The mermaid's life essence got damaged. To a gold-rank contract master like Selena, this pet had no cultivation value. But she pointed out that even her reject was something a bronze-level student like me couldn't normally afford. She led me to a pool carved from a single block of sapphire. At the bottom, curled up on white sand and colorful pebbles, was a tiny mermaid no bigger than my palm. She had a pale blue fishtail that shimmered faintly like starlight, blue curly hair like seaweed, and skin so white it looked sickly. Her scales were loose, her tail was dull, and her breathing was so faint I could barely see it. She looked like she might break if I touched her. Selena described the situation calmly, like a scholar stating facts. The bloodline awakening failed. The mermaid's life source was damaged. Her growth potential was ruined. No value for someone at Selena's level. But my system saw something completely different. It identified her as a special mutated female pet, a starlight mermaid. Extremely weak and losing life energy, but her ultimate evolution paths included Sacred Star Sea Songstress, Storm Mermaid Queen, or Deep Sea Mermaid Sovereign. The system rated her cultivation value at 8 out of 10 stars. This was a treasure that Selena had written off because she couldn't see what I could see. I held back my excitement, walked to the pool, and dipped my finger into the water to gently stroke her blue hair. The tiny mermaid slowly opened her eyes and nuzzled her little cheek against my finger. I cupped her in both hands and asked, "Will you come with me?" The moment I lifted the little mermaid out of the water, she squirmed weakly and let out a tiny whimper. She curled up in my warm palms and nodded. She'd go anywhere. She just didn't want to keep sleeping alone in that pool anymore. Then my bronze contract tome appeared in the air and started glowing. I felt my own life force being drawn out. The tiny mermaid floated up from my hand, drifted to my face, and gently kissed my forehead. With her broken body, she pledged herself as my companion. With her star soul, she chose to share my fate. The tome opened to its second page, but what shocked Selena was that this mermaid didn't just become a regular contracted pet. She voluntarily became a companion spirit pet, meaning she tied her life to mine completely. If I die, she dies too. Regular contracted pets can find new masters after their owner dies, but companion pets vanish with you. Selena never expected this little creature she'd written off as a failure to make such an absolute, trusting choice. I gently rubbed her cold little cheek with the back of my finger and named her Vivian. She nuzzled against my hand and hummed softly. She liked the name. Selena's expression was complicated. She told me to take Vivian and go. On the walk home, I carried the tulip pot in my hands and Vivian tucked against my chest. I checked the system shop and found what I needed: Essence of Life Spring Dew, a rare item that could repair non-fatal source damage. It cost 500 points. I only had 10. But then I checked my balance and saw 510. The system had rewarded me for Vivian's voluntary life bond. I spent it all immediately. Back at my dorm, Haya spotted Vivian and completely melted. She begged to hold her, and when the tiny mermaid's cool little body settled into Haya's warm palms, Haya kissed her right away. Vivian let out a small whimper in her sleep, and that one sound destroyed every bit of Haya's composure. Her motherly instincts went into overdrive. I told her Vivian's name and asked her to take good care of her. She needed a lot of attention. After dinner, I put a drop of the life spring dew on my fingertip. Vivian's eyes snapped open instantly. She could smell it. She reached both tiny arms toward me from Haya's embrace, crying out. I brought my finger close, and she immediately started licking the drop, savoring every bit. When the drop was gone, she held onto my finger and licked it clean just to make sure nothing was wasted. The system chimed. Vivian's condition jumped to healthy and full of energy. Her source damage was repaired. Hidden potential began activating. She learned 2 skills, Water Shadow Star Arrow, a quick strike attack combining water and starlight, and Star Bathing Spirit Rain, a support skill that heals, restores energy, and promotes plant growth. Vivian could feel the power surging inside her newly healed body. She wanted to test her skills, but was too well-behaved to wreck the room. So she spotted my tulip on the balcony and cast Star Bathing Spirit Rain. Blue water energy and silver moonlight merged around her, forming gentle glowing particles mixed with cool dew that rained down softly over me, Haya, and the tulip. Haya and I felt our fatigue vanish completely. Our minds sharpened, our skin felt refreshed. The tulip swayed happily, its petals growing fuller and more vibrant right before our eyes. The symbiotic cycle Selena had described was already working. I reached out and patted Vivian's little head. She squeezed her eyes shut and let out a soft, contented hum. My adorable little girl. After I patted Vivian, my tulip started shaking her petals on the balcony. She was jealous. I walked over and kissed her petals, and she immediately cheered up and rubbed against my cheek. Being a contract master felt pretty great. I couldn't help wondering if these 2 cuties would cry when I teased them after they grow up. I tried putting Vivian in a soft little basket to sleep, but she started crying and reaching for me with both arms. She wanted to stay in my embrace. Haya came over and tried to comfort her, cooing at the little mermaid like a mother. Looking at Haya soothing my tiny spirit pet, I already knew tonight was going to be a long night. That woman is in her 30s, and her appetite is. Well, Haya had already prepared a hot bath. When she noticed Vivian peeking out of her basket with those big blue eyes and a pouty lip, she suggested we bring the little one along since she's a water-type pet who'd probably enjoy the warm water. So we did. The tulip on the balcony listened to the sounds from the bathroom, same as every night. The next morning, Haya helped me dress, fed me breakfast, and gave me a goodbye kiss. I headed to class carrying my tulip in my hands and Vivian tucked in my shirt. Neither of them wanted to go inside the contract tome. The tulip thought the tome's level was too low and had barely any spiritual energy, so she'd rather stay outside and enjoy the sunlight. Vivian just hated being locked in a dark space. I wasn't going to force them. Some people might feel embarrassed walking around with 2 weak little pets out in the open, but as a noble student, nobody would dare mock me, and fellow nobles had no reason to pick fights. At the lecture hall, the year's supervisor, a calm, glasses-wearing middle-aged man, announced that starting today, we'd begin field missions. The academy would post tasks ranked from 1 to 10 stars, and our mentors would pick missions suited to our team's level. We'd travel through teleportation arrays to different provinces, even to the Empire's borders, for real combat training. Life or death situations were expected. He explained that stars earned from completed missions would count toward our year-end evaluation and graduation requirements. And if anyone reached 300 stars, the Emperor himself would personally grant them a Baron title and a fief, though nobody had achieved that in years. A title and land were exactly what I needed most. Contract masters consume more resources than any other profession because they're the most versatile. Offense, defense, healing, control, even logistics and territory development, all in one. But raising spirit pets costs a fortune, so having your own land is every contract master's dream. Even if I can't reach 300 stars, I need strong enough results to convince my father to give me a piece of land. When I snapped out of my thoughts, I was already standing on a grass field. Selena was waiting with two commoner girls, my teammates. They wore simple but clean uniforms and looked a bit nervous. I walked up to them openly, tulip in hand, Vivian in my shirt. Selena glanced at Vivian but said nothing. As a mentor, she wouldn't mention giving me a pet in front of the others to avoid looking biased. All three of you, change into casual clothes and follow me, she ordered, sharp and swift, without explaining where we were going. Back at my dorm, Haida helped me change into simple clothes. Before leaving, I did my daily interaction, kissed the tulip's petals and Vivian's little cheek. The system rewarded me 20 points, bringing my total to 30. I plucked one of the tulip's petals and fed it to Vivian. She ate it happily in my arms, making little squeaking sounds the whole time. I returned to the meeting spot on time. Selena told us our destination, the uninhabited zone outside the Empire's northwest border. She wasn't taking us on a mission. She was giving us the chance to find wild spirit pets to contract. My two teammates, a chestnut-haired girl named Orlina with a yellow cat on her shoulder, and another girl, could barely contain their excitement. Selena reminded us that contracting a pet requires mutual willingness. You can't force it. We stepped through the Academy's teleportation array and appeared in a small frontier town called Algalon Fort, the last supply point before the wilderness. The streets were rough stone, full of sweaty mercenaries, noisy taverns, gambling halls, and merchant caravans rolling by. City guards came to check our identities immediately, and Selena showed them her Silver Academy token. They let us through. Just as we were about to move out, another Academy mentor named Sean appeared with his own 3 students. He wore a fancy white and gold noble robe and greeted Selena with a thin smile. She didn't return the courtesy at all, just told him it was none of his business, and ordered us to leave. Watching this exchange, I realized there was serious competition between mentors too. Selena hadn't actually skipped taking a mission. She'd hidden it to prevent rival teams from sabotaging us. There was probably some kind of mentor evaluation behind the scenes, with rewards even more tempting than a Baron's title. Sean was a pure-blooded Tylo noble, and his eyes carried that typical superiority when looking at other races. Selena is a full-blooded elf, and despite her family being powerful Tylo Empire nobles, people like Sean still look down on non-humans. Every pure Tylo noble has that attitude. I'm no exception, honestly. Sean turned his attention to me and noticed my tulip had leveled up. I kept my composure and played the polite noble game, crediting my family for the progress and complimenting his sharp eye. That's how nobles work. Stab each other in the back all you want, but keep smiling to each other's faces. Selena cut me off mid-sentence and dragged us away. Once we were in the busy streets and out of earshot, she told me not to talk to that man again, at least not in front of her. She hated the fake pleasantries. I smiled and told her whatever she says is truth, calling her my most beautiful mentor. My two teammates looked uncomfortable after witnessing the tension between mentors. The wine-red twin-tailed girl, Joanna, suddenly grabbed my arm and pressed herself against me, saying she was scared. I cursed under my breath. What a flirt. Joanna's companion pet was a bronze 4-star demon hunter wolf girl, leagues above my tulip and one of the best in our entire grade. But in the eyes of nobles, talented commoners like her would just end up serving people like us after graduation anyway. As the only male in the team and a noble at that, I was obviously Joanna's target. She didn't dream of being a proper wife. A noble marrying a commoner means giving up your title. She wanted to be a mistress, like Hea. Orlina clearly looked down on Joanna for it, but Joanna didn't care. She figured that climbing into my bed and keeping me happy would earn her enough resources to skip years of struggle. I didn't reject her or encourage her. I just let her cling to my arm and told her we'd be safe with our mentor around. Selena warned us without even turning her head. She wouldn't step in unless we faced something we truly couldn't handle. Joanna noticed Vivian in my shirt and gushed over how cute she was. We chatted as we walked and soon left the town behind. The landscape turned into rolling hills with sparse plants, the air thick with the smell of dirt and wild grass. Selena stopped and briefed us. The outer zone had bronze 1-star to 6-star spirit pets, with silver rank ones deeper in. Common types included sand scorpions, tumblewind sprites, eagle claw griffins, and moonlight spirit fish. She recommended someone contract a tumblewind sprite. It could kick up small sandstorms to mess with enemies' vision, covering a gap in our team's abilities. She reminded us that real combat isn't about sending out one pet. It's a coordinated system of multiple pets working together. Since my tome was already full at 2 pages, the 3 contract slots belonged to Orlina and Joanna. They agreed, and we headed for Windroost Canyon. Selena's blue butterfly flew ahead as a guide and danger sensor. The terrain shifted as we entered a wide valley between 2 mountain ridges, the canyon. Wind howled through the compressed space, blasting sand and dead grass everywhere. Tumbling balls of dried grass rolled toward us, mostly ordinary tumbleweeds, not spirit pets. Selena told us to keep exploring on our own while she watched from behind. She drew a glowing blue circle in the air that formed a viewing portal to monitor us. Her white butterfly flew high to keep watch, probably still wary of Sean and his group. The 3 of us pushed forward through the wind. Joanna clung to my arm. Orlina hugged her little orange cat, and Vivian started whimpering in my shirt from the howling gusts. I couldn't comfort her since one hand held the tulip pod, and the other was trapped by Joanna. I asked Vivian if she wanted to hide inside the tome, but she shook her tiny head and gripped my collar tighter with both hands, her blue starry eyes full of trust. Then Joanna spotted something, one tumbleweed that was different from the rest. While every other ball of grass was being flung around helplessly by the wind, this one sat perfectly still behind a rock. It was pale green instead of dry yellow, alive with energy. Only its outermost leaves swayed gracefully, as if it was deliberately absorbing the wind's power. "That's it. A tumblewind sprite," Orlina whispered, barely containing her excitement. She stepped forward, but the little grass spirit rolled a few steps against the wind, away from her. She froze and started cooing at it like it was a baby, calling it to come to Mama. The fact that it tried to run actually made her more excited. It proved the sprite had intelligence. Normally, a contract master either beats a wild pet into submission or lures it in. Smarter pets will actually negotiate, asking about food, living conditions, even whether you'll provide them a mate. Orlina kept trying to coax the tumblewind sprite. She told it how special and elegant it was, asked if it wanted to see the wider world beyond this windy canyon. Then she pulled out a wood magic stone and a wind magic stone from her tome space. She tossed a wood stone near it as bait. Watching her felt exactly like watching an ant lure a little girl with candy. The sprite couldn't resist. It pounced on the stone and wrapped its thin root-like threads around it, sucking up the energy. While it was busy eating, Orlina crept close, knelt down, and started petting it gently, telling it to eat slowly because she had more. The little grass ball rubbed its leaves against her fingers while absorbing the stone. She'd completely won it over. Orlina summoned her bronze 5-star contract tome. The second page opened with a flash of light, and the sprite willingly accepted the contract. She named it Little Green Dumpling. She didn't hide the information, so Joanna and I could read the page too. Bronze 3-star, with 3 skills. Sand dust sway for blinding enemies. Wind listening for sensing movement through air currents, and basic rooting for anchoring into the ground to boost defense and slowly recover health while staying still. 3 skills at 3 stars was impressive. Not every pet gets 1 skill per star level. It depends on the pet's own talent. This little grass ball had real potential. Selena appeared behind us and confirmed the sprite's quality was decent and its skills fit well. She told Orlina that 2 pets were plenty to focus on at her current bronze 5-star level. Then she turned to Joanna. Her demon hunter wolf girl was a pure attack type, but too fragile. Selena recommended pairing it with a control or binding pet to form an attack plus control system. Joanna asked wouldn't a healer or defense pet make more sense, but Selena shook her head. Wolf girls are born fighters who grow through pressure and pain. They'll likely learn aggressive skills like Battle Frenzy or Blood Fong Ren before reaching silver rank. Giving them a babysitter too early could actually suppress that potential. Better to have a control pet lock enemies down and let the wolf girl finish fights fast. Joanna understood and got fired up. Then she called Selena, Mama, trying to squeeze out a recommendation. I couldn't believe how fast this girl switched to the daughter act. Selena's eye twitched, but she gave her 2 options anyway. First, a whisper demon orchid, a rare plant pet that releases hallucinogenic pollen and binds enemies with tough vines, combining mental disruption with physical control. High potential, but very hard to find. Second, a shadow-binding spider. Shoots strong webs for excellent control, but lives in dark caves where bear-type monsters might also lurk. Selena told Joanna it was her choice, but warned that if we couldn't find the orchid, we'd have to settle for whatever suitable pet was nearby since our time outside was limited. Meanwhile, I felt a small private pride. Compared to these two commoner girls who had to catch their own pets, I was clearly the favorite child. Selena had just handed me Vivian directly without making me lift a finger. She never said it out loud, but the favoritism spoke for itself. Selena was the real mama here. Joanna chose the Whisper Demon Orchid over the shadow-binding spider. Going into dark caves with possible bear monsters was too risky. If she couldn't handle it, she'd drag us all down since Selena wouldn't help us fight inside. I respected her decision. Selena nodded and led us toward the Whispering Forest. Meanwhile, somewhere else in that same forest, Sean was with his own students. He crushed a green snake to death in his bare hands. It was a pet one of his students, a freckled girl named Alice, had just contracted. Blood dripped everywhere while he smiled warmly and told her it was okay, that people grow by making mistakes. He said the common saying, "There are no useless pets, only useless masters," was really just a comforting lie for the weak. The snake would have ruined her future, he claimed. Alice stood there crying silently, fists clenched. Sean had his white eagle scout the forest from above, and when his noble male student asked for guidance, Sean told him to find a whispered demon orchid too, and promised his eagle would help locate one. When we arrived at the Whispering Forest, Selena's blue butterfly whispered something to her. Even though she'd told us to rely on luck, she'd secretly sent her butterfly ahead to narrow down the search area. She pointed us toward a grassy field and told us to look, find it, or settle for something else. The field was huge, several football fields across, and the orchid we were looking for was only the size of a fingernail. We spread out to search. Then I noticed something surprising. My tulip was bending its stem like it was pointing me in a direction. It could actually sense other plant-type pets nearby. When it felt my amazement, it shook its head proudly, as if to say, "Of course I can." All those years of expensive nutrients and magic stones I'd poured into it without any visible growth. Turns out it had been using everything to develop intelligence rather than raw power. I followed the tulip's guidance and walked forward. Then I spotted a familiar figure in the distance. A golden-haired woman turned toward me and waved. It was Haya. She said she'd gotten bored at the academy and came to find me. But something felt wrong. Haya is a maid. She has no authority to use the academy's teleportation array. My mind cleared up fast. I was trapped in an illusion. This had to be the Whispered Demon Orchid's power. I looked toward Joanna and Orlina in the distance and tried to shout a warning, but no sound came out of my mouth. The fake Haya smiled sweetly, asked if I was tired, and pulled my head into her chest. She stroked my hair and whispered, "Sleep, young master. Just like being in your mother's arms. A little nap and you'll feel better." Her scent felt impossibly real. My mind was fully awake, but my body wouldn't obey me. Like sleep paralysis, I was conscious and trapped at the same time. The fake Haya stroked my hair and whispered how she'd loved me since the first day she saw me, how I used to cry for her to hold me every night. She begged me to stay with her forever. The illusion amplified every feeling of attachment I had toward Haya to an unbearable degree. I bit my tongue hard to stay conscious. The fake Haya seemed surprised. She couldn't believe a weakling like me was resisting her ultimate move. I knew this was the Whispered Demon Orchid's power, and in a real battle, it would have killed me many times over. My mind was awake, but my body was frozen, like sleep paralysis. She leaned down and kissed me. Then she whispered, "Call me Mama." No, absolutely not. I may have done plenty of questionable things before I crossed over to this world, but I draw the line at calling a plant mom. Then something clicked. My consciousness as a transmigrator, fundamentally different from a native of this world, snapped me fully awake. The fake Haya shrieked in disbelief and called me a bad child. I smirked and told her the real Haya would never ask me to call her mama on her own. She screamed back that my memories showed I'd called Haya that countless times, but it was too late. A golden light burst from above. It was my tulip. Her light wrapped around the orchid's illusory body and started eating it alive. The orchid screamed and begged, "Stop! Don't devour me." I was about to break through to silver rank, but the tulip didn't care at all. She was like a vicious little bully stomping on the orchid without mercy. The system told me what happened. My tulip had spontaneously learned a new skill called absolute parasitism. She could release pollen that seeps into the soil and drains nutrients from nearby rooted plant creatures. She was absorbing the orchid's life essence and evolving. The orchid begged me to make it stop, offering to sign a contract with me. But I only had 2 pet slots, both already full, and my companion pet's evolution mattered more than anything. So I watched as the orchid's cries faded to nothing and its body dissolved completely. The illusion shattered. My bronze contract tome upgraded straight to a silver tome, and my tulip transformed from a flower into a tiny fairy. I checked her new stats. Silver tulip fairy, silver rank, 3 stars. 4 skills now: empowering petals, absolute parasitism, golden guard, which creates protective petal shields on allies, and spirit drain, which makes her immune to same-rank mental magic and lets her absorb spiritual energy from anyone casting mental spells nearby. She was becoming a god-tier support. Trash Master Trash Daddy, a cheeky little voice sang in my ear. The tulip fairy was palm-sized like Vivian, with golden hair tied in twin tails by tiny vines, orange gemstone eyes, white skin, and a short skirt woven from layered golden petals. She even had little flower petal wings on her back and tiny leg garters made of golden petals over white stockings. Don't ask me where those came from. She nibbled my earlobe and scolded me for peeking at her private information in the tome. I was stunned again. She could talk, meaning her potential was limitless. But wasn't she supposed to be shy? The sweet, blushing tulip that wanted kisses had turned into a bratty little gremlin, probably from absorbing the orchid's essence. The orchid specialized in tricks and manipulation, so some of that mischievous personality must have carried over. I named her Tilope, poking her tiny forehead with my finger. She covered her blushing cheeks and yelled, "I'm not your little baby." Pervert Daddy. Trash Master. Classic. The bratty ones always cry the loudest. I looked down and saw a tiny purple flower at my feet, the remains of the whispered demon orchid, reduced to a small sprout. I waved Joanna and Orlina over. They were amazed. Joanna hugged me and kissed my cheek, calling me her lucky charm. But just as she was about to contract the orchid, a boy's voice called out from behind us. "Hold on. We found that whispered demon orchid first." 3 students from the academy walked over, led by a neatly groomed noble boy named Roger. He claimed they'd been watching the whispered demon orchid for a while and held back from approaching only because I was trapped in its illusion. Disturbing it could have caused me serious mental damage. So according to him, I actually owed them a favor. I gave him a cold laugh and didn't even look at him properly, which is very rude in noble circles. I told him flat out, what I set my eyes on is mine. Every noble is a born thief. Roger just wraps it in manners while I don't bother pretending. Roger fired back by bringing up my family's merchant origins, implying we lack proper breeding. He said he'd respect my logic not because I deserved respect, but because he had class. That crossed a line. Questioning a noble's upbringing is the deepest insult. But I understood what was really happening. This wasn't about a flower. Sean was pulling strings behind Roger, trying to sabotage whatever Selena's team did. By turning this into a personal dispute between 2 noble boys, I made it impossible for Sean to interfere directly. A mentor can't meddle in conflicts between noble students. Right on cue, Sean appeared behind his students, clapping and smiling. He suggested we settle it with a fight. Selena materialized from blue-white starlight and accepted immediately. "My students won't lose to yours." Battle lines formed. On my side, Tilope flew on her petal wings, Vivian floated on a water bubble, Orlina's orange cat, and her tumblewind sprite stood ready, and Joanna summoned her 4-star demon hunter wolf girl. Nearly 6 feet tall with wolf ears, a gray tail, silver slit pupil eyes, and claws extending from her fingers. She was obviously our main damage dealer. Roger laughed and opened a silver tome. Unlike my recently upgraded one, his was backed by serious family wealth. He released 3 contracted pets at once, arranged in a perfect fan formation. A bronze 5-star stone armor rhino, nearly 10 feet long and covered in heavy rock plates with a sharp horn. A bronze 4-star thunder martin, crackling with blue lightning, claws dug into the dirt, built for ambush strikes. And in the sky, A silver one-star steel needle feather eagle with razor-sharp metallic plumage, its eyes locked onto Tilipy and Vivian. His setup was textbook, frontline tank, flanking assassin, and air superiority. The Iron Triangle formation, clearly built with his family's resources and Sean's guidance. His two female teammates each summoned their companion pets too. One had a bronze 3-star big-mouth thornflower that spat poison at range. The other was Alice, the girl whose snake Sean had crushed, with a resonance lily of the valley, an elegant plant with crystal bell-shaped flowers that ring in the wind. The sound calms allies and grants partial immunity to crowd control, and its bells double as healing fruit. 5 pets against 5. On paper it was even, but we had a clear disadvantage up front. Our only tank was a tumblewind sprite. Basically a short wall once it roots itself, nothing compared to that armored rhino. Roger smirked and offered me a chance to surrender while we could both save face. I just smiled. What he didn't realize was that my Tilipy is the natural predator of every plant-type pet that has to stay rooted in the ground. His thorn flower and Alice's lily were sitting ducks for her absolute parasitism. This looked like 5 versus 5, but it was really 5 against 3. And I still had 530 system points ready to spend on whatever I needed. I ignored Roger's surrender offer completely, which frustrated him. Like punching cotton. Orlina made the first move. She ordered Little Green Dumpling to spin at high speed, kicking up a thick wall of sand and dust across the battlefield. It couldn't stop a charging rhino, but it cut the field in half and made the enemy hesitate. They couldn't see what was waiting on the other side. Tilipy used the dust cloud as cover, scattering her golden pollen into the swirling sand. It drifted silently toward the enemy's rooted plant pets. Then came the counterattack. Dozens of steel needle feathers shot through the dust, like deadly arrows, impossible to count. Joanna panicked. She and her wolf girl had no way to defend against that. Orlina hid behind her rooted tumblewind sprite. But even the grass wall had gaps the needles could slip through. Tilipy saved us. She let out a sharp cry and released a burst of golden tulip petals that flew with precision to every ally on the field. Each petal landed and unfolded into a translucent golden magical coat, her golden guard skill. Every person and every pet on our side was wrapped in a shimmering gold film. The steel needles hammered against those layered shields and couldn't break through. Not a single scratch. Orlina stared in disbelief at how powerful my tulip had become. I could even see Tilipy's little face beaming with pride. I'd already warned my teammates beforehand. Nobody could let Tilipy speak out loud. A talking spirit pet would make anyone jealous, and even though a companion pet can't be stolen, it would put a giant target on my back. On the sidelines, both Sean and Selena were visibly surprised by Tilipy's performance. Sean seized the moment to stir trouble. He asked Selena sarcastically how she'd managed to help me grow a simple flower to this level without family support, and suggested maybe she was grooming me as a future husband, that our families were arranging a marriage. Everyone on the field except me looked shocked. Joanna and Orlina suddenly had, so that's how it is, written on their faces. Even Roger was thinking the same, that I'd gotten ahead by selling my looks to the beautiful Ice Queen Minter. He was jealous, but comforted himself that one gold-rank Minter's resources couldn't match his entire family's backing. Neither Selena nor I responded to the accusation, which only made everyone more convinced it was true. Joanna started internally panicking. She'd been openly flirting with me right in front of Selena this whole time. She clasped her hands together and silently prayed that Mama Selena wouldn't punish her. She swore to herself she'd never have improper thoughts about me again. Selena actually had no idea how I'd evolved my tulip either. She knew better than anyone that she hadn't given me any special plant cultivation secrets. Every contract master guards their evolution methods like hidden treasure. She couldn't figure out how a bronze tulip could reach silver rank fairy form. That's not something normal resources or known methods could achieve. But by staying silent, she was protecting my secret. Back on the battlefield, after the steel needle barrage ended, the dust wall shifted and the stone armor rhino burst through, charging like a tank with its horn aimed straight at us. Nobody on our side could tank that head-on. Orlina stood up from behind the grass wall and told Joanna to have her wolf girl dodge the rhino and go after the thunder marten instead. She'd handle the big guy herself. Her tiny orange cat jumped to the ground, This ridiculous little furball stood right in the path of the charging armored rhino and actually hissed at it. It looked absurd, but Joanna and I knew that cat. We'd been teammates long enough to trust Orlina's judgment, so Joanna nodded and got into position. Orlina's little orange cat is no ordinary pet. Its name is Little Maudai, a bronze 5-star causality cat with gold and order attributes. Its skills are insane. Useless hiss forces any enemy it hisses at to treat it as priority target. Low damage but maximum insult, like cursing their entire family. Cat is reverse butterfly, lets it swap bodies with the enemy it hissed at for 5 minutes. And who dares hiss me means once it swaps bodies, it can also trade one of the enemy's skills using another hiss, while the enemy trapped in the cat's body can't use the hiss back. The stone armor rhino charged at Little Maudai in a blind rage, eyes red, nostrils flaring. The cat just stood there hissing what sounded like very dirty insults. The instant the rhino's horn was about to hit, the cat tapped its paw pad against the horn. Body swap activated. The rhino's soul was now stuck in a tiny orange cat body, staring in horror as its own massive armored form turned around and charged straight back at its own team. The cat in rhino body was having the time of its life, trying to imitate the rhino's roar while stampeding toward Roger. Orlina walked up to the real rhino trapped in the cat body and smacked it. "What are you hissing at?" Roger saw his own rhino charging at him and panicked. He scrambled onto his Thunder Martin and fled in a streak of blue lightning, the fastest that Martin had ever run in its life. Meanwhile, the enemy's 2 plant pets, the thorn flower and the resonance lily, were wilting. Tilipy's absolute parasitism pollen had reached them through the dust cloud and was draining their life force. Alice shook her lily desperately, but its calming bells did nothing against parasitism. The thorn flower was even worse off, its bulb shriveling up completely. Roger cursed his teammates and ordered his silver 1-star steel needle eagle to dive at Vivian and Tilipy in the air. Tilipy threw up golden guard shields on both of them, and Vivian fired water shadow star arrows. But at bronze 1-star, her attacks bounced off the silver rank eagle like nothing. I didn't hesitate. I jumped and grabbed both Tilipy and Vivian, shielding them with my own body as the eagle dove at us. Vivian cried out in panic. Tilipy screamed, "Stupid daddy," and begged me to let go. But these 2 companion pets are my lifeline. I'd rather take the hit myself. Roger wouldn't actually kill a fellow noble, but I wasn't counting on his mercy either. I opened the system shop with 530 points and found what I needed. A bloodline activation stone for 500 points. Low chance of awakening a hidden ancient bloodline. High chance of permanently boosting a base stat. I used it on Vivian instantly. The moment I turned my back to the eagle's lethal charge, an ancient power erupted from Vivian's tiny body, a force that felt like it came from a primordial star ocean. The system confirmed it. Vivian's bloodline activated. She evolved into a starlight mermaid, jumped to silver 1-star, and learned 2 new skills, Thunderstorm and Tidal Anthem. I'd gambled right. Selena's failed experiment had tried to awaken this exact bloodline. I'd already repaired Vivian's damaged source last time. Now the stone finished what Selena started. I checked Vivian's new stats immediately. She was now a starlight mermaid, silver 1-star with water, light, and thunder attributes. For skills, water shadow star arrow, star bathing spirit rain, thunderstorm witch. Summons a small thunder cloud that rains lightning-charged droplets on enemies. And Tidal Anthem, where she sings to gather nearby liquids into a wave that slows anything it hits. She wasn't palm-sized anymore. She'd grown to about 1 meter tall, like a little girl, and was clinging to my leg. Her blue curly hair now reached her waist and sparkled with actual starlight at the tips. Big watery blue eyes looked up at me like she was about to cry. Her skin was fair with a few decorative shells covering what needed covering, and her tail was covered in sapphire-like scales reflecting blue light. She sucked on her finger and whimpered. Then a dark cloud formed above us and started raining lightning-charged drops right onto the steel needle eagle. Thunder and metal feathers don't mix. The eagle shrieked in agony as electricity crackled across its body, then crashed to the ground, foaming at the mouth. I looked at Roger on his Thunder Martin and told him the fight was over. He couldn't accept it. He drew his noble short sword and ordered a charge, but Sean stopped him immediately. Sean had noticed Joanna's wolf girl hadn't even entered the fight yet. a pure killing machine that wouldn't know when to stop. If Roger attacked in his current state, things could turn deadly. Sean's goal was promotion, not mutual destruction with Selena. He barked at Roger to stand down and left without even throwing out a threat. Joanna successfully contracted the whispered demon orchid. I carried Vivian to a quiet corner and held her up to eye level. She was shy, still teary-eyed from when I'd shielded her with my body. I kissed her cheek and told her she was my good girl. She couldn't speak yet, which puzzled me. A flower had turned into a chatty brat. So why couldn't a mermaid talk? Mermaids are a singing race. Their language talent should be better than a plant's. She laughed like silver bells when I kissed her and rubbed her little face against mine, her tail swishing happily. Tillapi got jealous watching this, hands on her hips, stomping the air. I grabbed her and pulled her into my arms too, petting her cheek. She blushed and protested that she's not a baby, but then quietly found a comfortable spot in my embrace and mumbled that I was shameless for calling everyone baby. So there I was, flower fairy nestled against my chest, mermaid sitting on my arm with her face buried in my shoulder. Selena glanced at us, nodded, and said we were heading deeper into the uninhabited zone's inner area where real danger waited. I frowned. Both my pet slots were full and my teammates had their new contracts too. Why go deeper? Raising 2 silver-rank pets was already expensive enough. Vivian needed about 50 grams of moonlight algae daily at 1 gold coin per serving. Tillapi needed 30 milliliters of dawn nectar daily, also 1 gold coin. Those are the proper foods. You can substitute cheaper alternatives, but long-term your pet gets malnourished. There's even a profession called spirit pet nutritionist just for planning pet diets. To put the costs in perspective, 1 gold coin equals 100 silver, 1 silver equals 100 copper, and 2 copper buys a loaf of bread. A common laborer earns about 20 to 30 copper a day. Academy students get a monthly allowance of 30 silver, meaningless to nobles but precious to commoners. My allowance as a noble's son could still cover these expenses, but just barely. A normal student could never afford 2 silver-rank pets at once. I realized Selena had taken on a serious mission she hadn't told us about. A few days later, she led us into the inner zone of the uninhabited area. It was nothing like the outside, dead silent, no insects, no beast calls, just wind through leaves and a river flowing. I checked the map and started to say there were things hiding under the water, but Selena shushed me. Then I saw it. A skeletal white tiger with a horn on its head and wings on its back. Even in its weakened state, it leaped into the deep river and attacked whatever was lurking below. Lightning exploded through the water, turning the dark forest bright as day. The river boiled, the air stank of burnt flesh, and a furious roar erupted from below. A massive crocodile surfaced, over 20 meters long, covered in black armor-like scales etched with soul marks, its blood-red eyes full of primal cruelty. Joanna recognized it immediately. Acto, the soul-devouring black crocodile, a gold king beast. These named creatures are every contract master's dream pet, but so many have died trying to capture them that they're infamous. Selena pointed at the white tiger. That was our actual mission target. The Thunder Sword Tiger named Krishna, also a Gold King beast, and one of the 7th Academy headmaster's contracted pets. The current 11th headmaster, the 7th's granddaughter, had sensed through bloodline power that her grandfather's last surviving pet was dying. She'd posted a mission to investigate. Joanna clung to my arm in terror. Vivian and Tillapi trembled in my shirt. Watching 2 Gold King beasts fight to the death could kill us from the shockwaves alone. Selena shook her head when asked if we should help. Kings have their own way of dying. Our mission is already complete. She explained that Gold King beasts transcend normal star rankings. They can fight platinum and diamond rank pets. What makes them special is their king's essence, which gives them the potential to awaken their own contract tome. A beast with a tome could contract and raise pets just like a human contract master. Every contract master dreams of having such a creature. But apparently, even the legendary 7th headmaster never managed to help Krishna awaken one. Then the battle shifted. The black crocodile endured the lightning burns and smashed its massive tail into the tiger's weakened side. But Krishna held on, biting the crocodile's neck while her horn erupted with blinding lightning, like a flashbang that turned everything white. The light pierced through my closed eyelids and made me cry. When I woke up, I was in my dorm bed. Selena had shielded us from the blast's aftermath. I don't know what happened after that, but just before I blacked out, I heard the system's broken voice. It detected 2 Gold King beasts dying nearby and automatically absorbed their scattered king essence. It also detected an incomplete contract tome inheritance and tried to capture and analyze it, but failed due to the energy's complexity. Partial data was recorded before the system overloaded and went into forced hibernation for 48 hours. Haya was at my bedside when I opened my eyes. Vivian and Tilope were sleeping on my chest. I'd been unconscious for 3 days. Haya had already arranged my leave from classes. She kissed my forehead and told me to rest. Then she mentioned something else. My father was hosting a birthday banquet soon and planned to arrange a marriage for me. This world has no strict one-wife law since the church isn't very powerful here, which is how my father managed to have 19 children through multiple women. My mother was a noblewoman, but only a concubine. She died shortly after I was born. Her father, my maternal grandfather, had strongly opposed her becoming a concubine in the Villaret household, but my father is a count who does what he wants. Once my mother was pregnant, my grandfather had no choice but to accept it. The two families barely interact, which is why my standing among all my father's children has always been low. I had to attend my father's birthday banquet. Now that I was a silver-rank contract master, the old man might actually start taking me seriously, maybe even invest more in me. A silver contract master at my age is extremely rare and usually means a family poured massive resources into someone. Roger, with all his family backing, only had 1 silver pet. Of course, without my system, he would have crushed all 3 of us single-handedly. I didn't desperately need family resources since I had the system, but the system can't create land out of thin air. Becoming a lord with real territory and power, that's what I truly want. I even have ambitions of inheriting my father's count title. If I can't get that, I at least need a fief. This isn't freeloading, it's a deal. The old man wants his family to grow stronger, so why shouldn't I have a seat at that table? The thought crossed my mind. Noble families kill each other over succession all the time. If one of my brothers inherits and orders Haya to serve him in bed, could I refuse? No, not unless I have real power. After washing up with Haya's help, I asked for wine with breakfast. She scolded me. I'd just woken from a 3-day coma. I gave in, but demanded a better morning kiss as compensation. She rolled her eyes with that indulgent look and gave me a long, proper one. At breakfast, Tilope and Vivian had their own little table where Haya had set out moonlight algae and dawn nectar. The two were sharing bites of each other's food. Then Haya announced a visitor, a classmate named Christie's. I was surprised. She's a noble girl known for being antisocial, always dressed in gothic Lolita fashion. She never visits anyone. I told Haya to let her in and set another place. Christie sat down without a word, her ash-gray hair pinned with a green gem clip, purple eyes glancing at me before she quietly started eating. She didn't speak the entire meal. Neither did I. It wasn't awkward for her at all, even though this was our first real meeting. Finally, after finishing her last sip of tea, she set the cup down and said with total seriousness, "Please teach me how to make a comeback from being worthless." I almost thought she was mocking me. She explained that the whole academy was buzzing about how I'd evolved 2 bronze pets to silver in just days. Most people assumed I'd slept with Selena, but Christie's had a different theory. Then she went completely off the rails. She said she'd been studying Selena for a long time and concluded Selena wasn't the aggressive type. She probably had submissive tendencies instead. But back when I was still a nobody, I couldn't possibly have been dominant enough to pin a powerful Ice Queen elf against a wall. So I must have used some kind of secret drug. She begged me to share my Selena Conquest Guide with her. Her own mentor, Phil, was Selena's close friend with a similar personality, and Christie's wanted to use the same method to get her mentor to help evolve her pet to silver rank. She swore she'd do anything in exchange. I had to stop her before this conversation went any further. Christie's kept insisting I'd drugged Selena. She had this whole theory about how Ice Queen women secretly have submissive tendencies and just need to be pinned against a wall. She even asked if Selena made me call her degrading names. Haya covered her mouth in shock, apparently believing every word. I kept denying it, but Christie's wouldn't listen. When I still refused to share my non-existent conquest guide, she switched tactics instantly. She slipped off her shoes, tried acting cute, called me big brother, blew me a kiss, then immediately mocked me for being a pervert who made an innocent girl confess to him. This girl's bratty act was dangerously effective. I glanced at Hea, who took the hint and left with Vivian and Tilopi. Once we were alone, which in noble culture signals a private conversation where every word carries weight, Christie's dropped the act too. She put a black lace parasol on the table. That was her companion spirit pet, Little Black. An umbrella. Its only skill was blocking sunlight. Somehow I'd found someone even more pathetic than my old Tulip. I tried to be diplomatic about it. Nobles never give blunt negative opinions. I said something about it being a loyal pet that preserves its master's dignity during sudden rainstorms. She caught the hidden insult. She told me she didn't come for my opinion on her pet. I told her I could help her evolve Little Black. Before I could finish, she got excited again, thinking I was finally handing over the drug, but then worried because her mentor Phil probably likes men, so a girl forcing. A kiss would be awkward since she'd have nothing to offer after flipping her over. I had to explain I meant I could directly provide a cultivation method for her umbrella. She calmed down and asked what my price was. I told her I wanted a fief. She got angry. A fief is incredibly valuable. You can only get land by being granted a noble title from the emperor, inheriting from your father, receiving it as a gift from your lord, or earning 300 stars at the academy to graduate first and be made a baron, which is nearly impossible in 1 year. She said trading one bronze pet's evolution for an entire territory was insane, and even if she had land to spare, she wouldn't make that deal. I clarified. I wasn't asking her to hand me a fief directly. What I said was, I only have one little sister, but I have 17 older brothers. That's far too many. Christie's played with her silver dinner knife and told me honestly, she couldn't kill anyone for me, and she faced the same kind of problems I did. She wasn't a legitimate daughter either, had no talent, and her family gave her minimal support. But as a noble girl, she could always marry into a powerful house, so her situation wasn't as desperate as mine. I clarified that I wasn't asking her to kill anyone. I told her about the marriage my father was arranging, then got to the real point. I wanted stars. Enough to earn the emperor's personal grant of a baron title. She looked at me like I was insane. That meant finishing first in both team and individual graduation exams for 200 stars, plus grinding high-difficulty missions all year for another 100. It would mean being the undisputed #1 among all contract masters my age in the entire empire. I laid out my actual deal. I'd give her the method to evolve her umbrella to silver rank. In exchange, she'd befriend the 2 female students on Roger's team and get them to leak information, what pets they contracted, what missions they planned. Just casual intelligence gathering. She recoiled and called me disgusting for asking an introverted girl to seduce other girls. I pointed out that someone who'd spent that much time analyzing Selena's hidden personality traits could probably handle a couple of naive students without breaking a sweat. She grumbled but agreed to try. After she left, I opened the system shop. The evolution methods for my own pets to gold rank were listed at the top, and they were expensive. Tilopi had 3 possible gold forms at 3,000 points each. Tulip Arrogant Witch for control and resistance reduction, Tulip Guardian Angel for damage reduction and healing, or Tulip Royal Princess for damage boost and purification. Vivian's gold forms were also 3,000 each. Star River Chanter for single target magic damage and control, Star Vault Guardian for area magic damage and healing, or Deep Sea Mourner for sustained magic damage and control. 3,000 points was way beyond my reach for now. As for Christie's umbrella, the system listed it as simply lace parasol, just as pathetic as my old Tulip. I picked a silver evolution for her called Shadow Moon Canopy, focused on defense and body fusion enhancement. Body fusion pets are rare. They can merge with their master, letting the contract master use the pet's own skills directly. The price was 200 points. I checked my balance. 30 points. I cleared my throat and told Christie's I'd need a few days to research the method for her. Christie's curtsied and left, saying she'd wait for my results. A deal is a deal. She'd hold up her end once I delivered. I went to the bedroom for daily interactions and found Hea lying on the bed with both my pets. Vivian was resting on Heu's soft thigh while Tilopi was nestled in her chest, and Hea was humming a lullaby while patting Tilopi's back and stroking Vivian's forehead. She really was like a mother to my little ones. I picked up Vivian, took her spot on Heu's lap, and set the little mermaid in my arms instead. Vivian immediately kissed my cheek with a happy "Mwah," and then buried her blushing face in my chest, squeaking shyly. The system gave me 30 points for that, up to 80 now. Tilipy wasn't about to lose. She flew to my nose, sprinkled jealous glitter pollen everywhere to mark her territory, and kissed me right on the lips. Another 30 points, 110 total. I told Tilipy she could speak freely in front of Hea. She'd been holding it in for days. She immediately called me a stupid master and demanded I take her outside to play. Hea's jaw dropped when she heard Tilipy talk. She scooped the little fairy into her arms, and Tilipy nuzzled Hea's palm and called her Mama. Hea melted completely. Vivian looked up with big sad eyes until Hea pet her head too and called her a good girl. Then I asked, "What about me, Mama?" And Hea pinched my cheek and said I'd always be her most precious little boy. Since I had the day off, I suggested we all go out together. Hea was touched. Most noble masters would never take their maid out for leisure. But I knew her entire world revolved around me, and she deserved some fresh air. The academy is the size of a small town. Gardens, lakes, training grounds, a whole commercial district. We walked down the shopping street, each carrying a pet. Vivian clung to my shoulder and buried her face against me. Total social anxiety, terrified of strangers. Tilipy sat in Hea's arms, eyes darting everywhere with wild curiosity. She spotted a dessert shop and whispered in Hea's ear that she was hungry. Hea looked at me hopefully. When she realized she couldn't make that call, Tilipy flew to my ear and unleashed her full bratty charm, cooing about how she wanted to stuff herself with sweets until her tummy was bursting, calling me stupid daddy, asking if I'd grant her wish in that irresistible sugary voice. I threatened to lock her in the tome space if she kept talking out loud. She stuck her tongue out at me and went, "Blay." Hea laughed and booped Tilipy's nose to tell her to behave. I pretended to be annoyed but still walked everyone into the dessert restaurant. The waitress at the door froze when she saw me. A noble student in blue and silver uniform with green eyes, gold hair, carrying a little mermaid who was hiding her face in my chest. The poor girl could barely stammer out a welcome, her ears turning red. I asked for a quiet private room by the window since Vivian was shy around strangers. Vivian buried her face deeper into my neck and let out a tiny whimper, as if begging me not to let anyone look at her. I checked her status in the tome. Nervous, shy, severely dependent, unable to leave her master's arms without crying. I held her tighter and whispered that I'd buy her cake. She nodded without lifting her head. It puzzled me. Vivian had been fine during our mission in the uninhabited zone. Maybe because danger forced her to stay alert? But in a safe, crowded place like this, her social anxiety took over completely. Strangely, she'd accepted me and Hea almost instantly when we first met. And Tilipy had naturally started calling Hea Mama on her own. Was Hea some kind of natural genius at bonding with spirit pets? Speaking of Hea, she wasn't wearing her usual maid uniform today. She had on a soft lavender knee-length dress with gray lace stockings and pearl accents at the collar. Her golden hair was pinned up in an elegant bun with loose strands framing her face. She looked stunning. I grabbed her hand and laced my fingers through hers. She gasped softly, surprised, then gave me that indulgent look and asked if I wanted a hug. I told her we'd do plenty of hugging tonight. She blushed, but her lips curved upward. She couldn't hide her happiness. The waitress brought our desserts: cream puffs, lemon tart, tiramisu, coconut cream pie, jam cake, and 4 moonlight algae lemon sodas. Hea scooped up some tiramisu and held the spoon to my mouth, but I kept my lips shut. I pointed at her lips and said I only accept mouth-to-mouth delivery. She sighed at my shamelessness, put the dessert in her own mouth, leaned down, and kissed it into mine. After our little moment, we started feeding the pets. I held the moonlight algae soda up to Vivian's mouth, but the little copycat pointed at my lips and then covered her blushing face with both hands. She wanted me to feed her the same way Hea had fed me. Tilipy immediately flew between us, hands on hips, furious. She declared that unless I fed her the same way, there would be consequences. I looked at her. She was palm-sized. Even if I wanted to, the logistics were impossible. I gently told Vivian we'd do that when she grew bigger. She nodded shyly from behind her hands. Tilipy stomped the air in outrage. "Why are you only comforting her and not me, stupid master?" I kissed Tillapi's cheek to calm her jealousy and joked that someday she'd have to give me lots of babies. She completely short-circuited, screaming that I was a pervert, face burning red, stammering that 3 babies was the absolute maximum. Then she bolted from my hand and dove into Heia's chest, heart pounding. Heia patted her back and offered cake to settle her down. I fed Vivian her dessert bite by bite while Heia handled Tillapi. Once everyone was full, we left. I packed some extra sweets, walked Heia back to our dorm gate, and told her I was going to visit Selena. At Selena's residence, a maid told me the mentor was injured and couldn't see visitors. She'd been hurt bringing us back from the inner zone. Shielding 3 students from the aftermath of 2 Gold King Beasts' death battle had taken a real toll. A priest had already examined her and said she'd be fine, but needed time to recover. I left the packed desserts as a get-well gift. The maid also passed along a message from Selena. Our group had completed a 10-star mission. I was shocked. We'd only gone to observe the old headmaster's pet. But it made sense once I thought about it. The unexpected appearance of 2 Gold King Beasts fighting to the death must have upgraded the mission's danger rating. That also told me something about the Academy's standards. Facing Gold King Beast-level threats was apparently the ceiling for student evaluations. On my way back, I ran into Joanna and Orlina, both carrying gifts for Selena too. I told them she was resting but would be okay. They were nervous about visiting a noble mentor. For commoner girls like them, Selena was probably the highest-ranking person they'd ever interact with in their lives. Before we could part ways, a sharp, commanding female voice cut through the air. "You 3. I'm in charge of you now." A tall woman with black hair pulled into a tight high ponytail stood before us in a sleek black mentor's robe. Her eyes were the most striking thing, golden irises with red X-shaped symbols in them. She wore dark stockings and red high heels, one hand on her hip, those crosshair eyes locked on us like targets. "I'm Phil Zepesh. Until Selena recovers, I'll be the one shaping you." She looked down at us. "Starting now, starting the moment I finish this sentence, run to the Academy Center at full speed and meet my 3 students there." A golden contract tome materialized in the air. She reached in and pulled out a black whip. Her contracted pet had transformed into a weapon. She cracked it at the ground an inch from our toes. The black stone tiles shattered on impact, leaving a deep gouge. "Didn't you hear me? I said run." Now, Joanna and Orlina were practically crying as they sprinted away. I ran too. This woman was terrifying. Phil Zepesh. That was the name Christie's had mentioned. Her own mentor. Christie's had said Phil and Selena had similar personalities. Similar? Selena is cold and aloof. This woman was a full-on queen who'd whip you for breathing too slowly. We hadn't even started running properly when Phil launched herself into the air on her heels like a ghost and cracked her whip across Joanna's back. Joanna screamed and went flying forward. Orlina turned to help her and got whipped too, crashing sideways to the ground. Phil walked toward them clicking her heels and called them dead weight. Bodies no better than ordinary people, nothing but burdens to their own spirit pets. Then she turned her crosshair eyes on me. She asked if I wanted to lie down with these 2, trash, for the sake of pointless feelings. I was panicking. Getting whipped as a noble would be the ultimate humiliation, but abandoning my teammates would damage our future teamwork. Phil saw my hesitation and taunted me by name, daring me to stay. I had Tillapi cast Golden Guard. 3 petals landed on me, Joanna, and Orlina, forming protective coats. Then I grabbed both girls and we ran. But something strange happened. When Phil saw Tillapi's golden petal skill, she froze completely. She just stood there staring at us as we fled, a distant look on her face. She whispered, "Tulip," like it triggered some old memory, as if she was remembering a time when she was young, being taught by a golden-haired, green-eyed woman. She didn't chase us. After 30 minutes of nonstop sprinting, we reached the Academy Plaza, completely spent. Joanna and Orlina's whip wounds had reopened, blood seeping through. Christie's was already waiting with her 2 teammates. She wasn't surprised by their condition. Christie's teammates gently wiped the blood from Joanna and Orlina's backs. The blood was black. The whip had actually forced toxins and impurities out of their bodies. One of the girls explained that Phil's strikes, while brutal, were actually meant to help them. I suddenly regretted not taking a hit myself. Phil appeared again, heels clicking. She caught us talking and slammed her whip into the ground, leaving a scorched mark. Everyone in the plaza scattered, students recognized her as the legendary mentor Zepesh, feared even by princes and princesses. The royal family wouldn't intervene if she beat their children at the academy. She lit a slim cigarette, took a drag, and ordered everyone to run 50 laps around the plaza. Then she pointed at me, 100 laps. Joanna and Orlina protested the unfair treatment since I'd just protected them. Phil exhaled white peach-scented smoke and said coldly, "This is a family matter." Everyone was confused, including me. I had zero family connection to this woman. Phil smirked and said I clearly didn't know yet, but there'd be plenty of time to learn. Then she shut down the discussion, saying as a mentor she had full authority over individualized training. Christie's and her teammates were already running. They knew better than to question Phil. Joanna and Orlina couldn't argue either. Commoners don't interfere in noble family business. My mind raced. Was my father's arranged marriage connecting me to Phil's family? Was my future bride her daughter? Her sister? Either way, being related to this whip-wielding demon meant I'd get special attention for the rest of the school year. Still standing there, Phil raised her whip, the tip whistling through the air. "Start running." Now, I gritted my teeth and ran the 100 laps. My mind kept wandering. Why did Phil say family matter? The Zepesh family's territory is in the north, and they hold a count title just like my family. If my father arranged a marriage with their house, my future wife could be Phil's daughter or sister. The thought of marrying someone who shares Phil's whip-happy personality made me shudder. When I finally crossed the finish line, my legs gave out, and I collapsed straight into something warm and soft, Phil's chest. She didn't move, just murmured in that cold, teasing voice, asking if it was comfortable. The other girls were horrified. Joanna and Orlina frantically pulled me off her. Phil commented that my stamina was genuinely depleted, then added with a smirk that finding the perfect support point to collapse into was a kind of talent. Before anyone could recover, she ordered us all to the Imperial Cross Academy training platform, a facility linked to the Knight Academy, Magic Academy, and Alchemy Academy through spatial connections. Students from different academies get teleported into a shared space to fight each other. She cracked her whip and gave us no room to argue. At the platform, Phil grabbed my wrist and pressed both our hands against the activation stone. She announced single random match mode. Lights swallowed us, and we appeared in a forest clearing. Across from us stood a red-haired girl in silver and gold knight armor, accompanied by a golden-haired older woman with a cheerful grin and cute fangs. The woman, Sophia, recognized Phil immediately and told her student to beat Phil's student until he cries. I felt like we were the spirit pets, and the two mentors were the contract masters sending us out to fight for them. The red-haired girl, Arya, gave me a proper knight's salute. Then a tome appeared in the air above her. Not a contract tome, but a knight's tome. In this world, tomes aren't exclusive to contract masters. Knights awaken knight tomes that let them store weapons, check their own stats, and unlock combat skills. Mages can awaken magic tomes too. Arya drew an ancient-looking longsword from her tome and pointed it at me. I ate one of Tilopi's empowering petals to recover some stamina, then had Tilopi cast Golden Guard on me. Arya knew a contract master's weakness is the master himself. Take me down and my pets become helpless. She charged, her entire body blazing with red fire-type battle aura. I ordered Vivian to use Tidal Anthem and Water Shadow Star arrow simultaneously. A curtain of spirit rain fell across Arya's charging path, and water arrows pelted her constantly. Fire versus water. Her aura steamed and sizzled, and the Tidal Anthem slowed her movement. But she powered through it all, barely slowing down, eyes locked on me alone. She thrust her sword straight into me. Tilopi's Golden Guard absorbed the hit, but the force still sent me flying several meters. Without a word, Arya charged again. Sophia crossed her arms and bet Phil that I'd lose within 30 seconds. Phil stayed silent, basically agreeing I had no chance. On the field, Arya was relentless. She ignored both my pets entirely and just kept chasing me with her sword. Vivian couldn't use Thunderstorm because Arya stayed too close to me, so she'd hit us both. Instead, Vivian condensed a single water arrow infused with Thunder Element and fired precise shots. It was the first time I'd seen her combine elements like that. Water Body, Lightning Tip. I had no stamina left from the 100 laps. Dodging was my absolute limit. Arya shattered Tilopi's golden guard shield and kept coming. In her eyes, without protection I was paper. Tilopi was frustrated. None of her skills worked against a Night Tome user. Arya wasn't a plant type, so absolute parasitism was useless. Golden Guard was already broken. The only one doing anything was Vivian. Vivian's thunder-infused arrow hit Arya right in the weak spot between her shoulder blades. The lightning exploded on contact and made her flinch, but she still swung. Her fire battle aura extended her sword to over 20 meters long. There was no dodging that. Vivian screamed the loudest cry I'd ever heard from her. Phil stepped forward to intervene, which would count as my loss. But I still had my system. I had 110 points. I'd been saving for Christie's umbrella evolution, but this was more important. If Phil was really going to be my future mother-in-law or sister-in-law, impressing her here could mean resources and support later. I found it in the skill shop. Flower Imperial Decree. Tilopi consumes half her mana to command all surrounding plants to grow wildly, either binding enemies or wrapping around allies for protection. 100 points. I bought it instantly. The moment the skill was implanted, Tilopi's eyes lit up. She flew in front of me and unleashed a golden shockwave that rippled through the entire clearing. The ground shook. Massive tree roots, thick vines, and even grass blades erupted from the earth at impossible speed, layering around me and Tilopi like a fortress while simultaneously wrapping around Arya and her sword. Vivian followed up with Tidal Anthem, coating the plant barrier in a water shield. The blazing red megasword crashed down on our makeshift wall of plants and water. Everything went dark inside our cocoon. Tilopi was trembling in my arms, stammering that she absolutely wasn't scared. I petted her hair gently and told her she was very brave. She called me a pervert and said the nickname, Good Girl, was disgusting, but she nuzzled her head into my palm anyway. When the explosion cleared, I saw Arya lying on the ground. Vivian had landed one more arrow on her right after the sword swing, my clever little mermaid. But this fight showed me clearly what I was missing. I had a support and a mage, but no frontline fighter, no tank, and no assassin to hit the back line. Arya coughed up blood and nodded to her mentor. Sophia admitted defeat, though I could see the shock hidden in her eyes. A silver rank contract master beating a silver rank Night Tome user was supposed to be impossible. Knights dominate every other class at the same rank during the early stages. Phil quietly checked that I wasn't seriously hurt, then leaned close to my ear and told me Arya was mute. She couldn't speak. I understood her meaning. I walked over and offered my hand. Arya looked surprised, then reached up and shook it. The fight ended there. Back at the academy, the other 5 girls could tell I'd been through hell. Phil gave me a rare compliment, not bad, then sent me home while ordering the rest to each take a turn in the cross-academy arena. At the dorm, Haya nearly had a breakdown seeing me covered in dirt and scratches. She blew gently on my face and called me her baby for the first time. I grabbed her and pulled her into the bathroom, saying my whole body hurt and needed a thorough examination. I locked the door behind us. Tilopi and Vivian were left outside, completely confused. Tilopi flew up and started hammering on the door, yelling that she'd worked hardest and deserved treatment too. She pressed her ear against the door, heard something, and slapped both hands over her mouth. Vivian tilted her head in innocent confusion. Tilopi flew over and whispered something in her ear. That evening I dressed in formal clothes and headed to visit Selena, bringing both pets along. On the way, Tilopi tormented me. She flew to one ear and imitated Haya's voice saying, "Wait, that's not right." Then flew to the other ear and mimicked my voice saying, "How is it wrong? Just try it." I froze and checked that nobody was around. I tried to grab her, but she dodged and made a face at me. "Blay pervert master." Vivian sat quietly in my arms as always, face buried in my chest, but her ears were red. Tilopi eventually settled down after I promised she could help me check injuries when she grew up. She kissed my cheek, leaving a tulip-scented mark. Vivian immediately looked up with teary eyes, so I kissed her too, then quickly grabbed Tilopi for another kiss before she could complain about favoritism. Both of them snuggled into my arms together. At Selena's residence, I straightened my hair and collar. The maid recognized me and led me to the side hall, then went to inform Selena. She'd refused visitors that morning, but 2 visits in one day showed urgency, so she'd likely see me if she was well enough. Selena came to the side hall in a light blue slip dress, barefoot on the carpet. She looked far too healthy for someone supposedly recovering. I suspected she was faking it to slack off. I offered to help her sit down. She waved me off and immediately guessed I wanted leave to go home. I was surprised she knew about my father's birthday. Since when did mentors track students' family events that closely? She approved 3 days, but warned me that every lost day during this golden year of learning could become a regret. Then she told me to travel with Pepe, her nickname for Phil Zepesh, since we were heading the same direction. She asked what I thought of Phil. I carefully described her as a very responsible mentor. Selena smiled and said Phil was actually a good person once he got to know her. I wanted to ask about Phil's daughter or sister, whoever my arranged bride might be, but I was afraid the two friends would compare notes later. Selena thanked me for the sweets I'd brought that morning, saying they were very sweet. She wasn't smiling when she said it, but after I left, I'm told she went to her balcony, watched me walk away under the moonlight, then ate one of the little cakes with a genuinely happy smile. The next morning, 2 carriages waited at the academy gates. Phil's was pulled by 2 armored unicorn-like beasts, decorated with the Zepesh family crest, a silver background with a bloodied sword, marking them as a loyal military border family. My family's crest is a blue background with a merchant ship and scattered coins, sea traders, through and through. Phil lifted the curtain and scanned me, paused briefly on Hea, then said simply, "Get in." I helped Hea into our family carriage first, then climbed into the Zepesh carriage with Tilopi and Vivian. I would have preferred riding in my own, but refusing a mentor's invitation wasn't wise. The interior was spacious, dark red carpet, cedar-scented air. Phil sat across from me, legs crossed, one heel dangling off her foot. Neither of my pets dared move. Tilopi played dead in my arms and Vivian buried her face in my chest. Phil just stared at my pets in silence, especially Tilopi. The awkwardness was suffocating, so I broke it by asking what type of pet she'd recommend I contract next. She ignored my question entirely. Instead, she lit a cigarette, gazed out the window, and said I spoiled my pets too much. She'd only seen them twice, but could tell they were excessively attached to me. Training spirit pets isn't the same as raising children. You don't need to cuddle and kiss them constantly. Other contract masters build proper living spaces inside their tome, where pets can play and train independently. But my tome space was probably still pitch black inside. The 2 little ones wanted to argue back, but didn't dare, not in front of a gold-rank contract master who also happened to be wielding authority over me. I tried to explain that they simply refused to go inside the tome. Phil looked at me in disbelief. A companion pet refusing to enter the tome space? And the mermaid too? Both of them. Yes, both of them. Phil frowned and told me my situation was extremely rare. I might be what history calls a female kill contract master. It means I have a natural trait that makes every female spirit pet who contracts with me become fatally attracted and dependent on me. That's why they refuse to enter the tome space. Any separation from me is unbearable for them. My presence alone is more appealing than any crafted environment. Vivian and Tilopi both nodded in agreement, which stunned me. But Phil's face turned grim. She said every recorded female kill contract master in history ended tragically. Their pets became consumed by twisted love and jealousy, eventually turning on each other, killing rivals to monopolize their master's affection. She warned me I must always treat my pets equally. The moment any pet senses favoritism, the others will try to eliminate the favored one, either directly or by letting enemies do it. What chilled me most was that neither Tilopi nor Vivian denied this. They didn't reassure me or promise they'd never do it. They just stayed silent, as if confirming it was a real possibility. The upside, Phil added, is that every pet I contract will voluntarily become a companion pet, bound to me in life and death, never betraying me. They'll do anything for me. Then she moved on to my 3rd pet. She pulled me into her arms to keep me close while explaining, using magic to hold Vivian and Tilopi in place on the opposite seat. Being pressed against her was comfortable, even if this woman was terrifying. She analyzed my team. Tilopi is plant and light, support-focused. Vivian is water, light, and thunder, half mage, half support. Together, they already provide decent survival through Golden Guard's damage absorption and Star-Bathing Spirit Rain's healing. So I didn't need a pure tank. For the 3rd pet, Phil recommended thunder, metal, or ice type as first choices, with fire or water as backup options. Metal would pair well with Vivian's thunder. Metal conducts electricity for devastating combos. Ice could combine with Vivian's water for freezing attacks. Water was redundant since Vivian already covered it, and fire would conflict with Vivian's water skills, canceling each other out. Since Vivian already had thunder as a secondary element, Phil settled on ice as the best pick. She said, "Let's find you an ice type," using "we" as if it were already decided. The phrasing felt slightly possessive, but then I figured it made sense. If we were about to become family through marriage, "we" was natural enough. The pattern felt familiar. Selena had done the same thing. Long lecture about team composition, narrow down the choice, then hand me the pet directly. Was I just destined to live off women? Phil flicked my forehead and said she'd already prepared an ice-type pet for me. I'd see it when we arrived home. So the pet was part of the marriage arrangement, a dowry, basically. She placed her cool palm over my eyes and told me to sleep. The scent and chill of her hand were strangely soothing. I drifted off with my head on her lap, and she stroked my forehead with a tenderness that didn't match her usual personality at all. My family's territory is the port city of Azure Harbor in the Empire's southern province. The Villaret House controls the harbor and surrounding rich lands. Our wealth from sea trade surpasses most counts, even military noble families like the Zepesh clan. Of course, old blood families probably see us as new money. The carriages stopped at the castle's grand arch gate. The old butler, Abel, in his tailcoat with silver-streaked hair, greeted us. He'd watched me grow up since childhood and always thought well of me. I'd never been cruel to servants like some of my brothers. He used to sigh about my useless tulip, but now he stared at the flower fairy and mermaid in my arms, then at the imposing woman beside me, visibly moved. Among all my siblings, I'm the odd one out. Every Villaret child has pale blue hair and pink eyes from our father's bloodline. I alone inherited my dead mother's golden hair and green eyes. In the lavish parlor decorated with pearl shell walls and a crystal chandelier shaped like water drops, my father waited. Victor Villaret sat in the main seat, old and gray, but still radiating the quiet authority of a man who'd held power for decades. He noted my 2 silver-rank pets without praise or criticism. Then he said it plainly. The wedding would be held after my graduation. He looked at Phil. She answered calmly that she'd follow whatever he arranged. I froze. We? I turned to the mature beauty beside me. Phil, you mean? She smiled. That's right. The one marrying you is me. Surprised, student, my brain nearly short-circuited. Not her daughter. Not her sister. Phil herself was my arranged bride. I stammered something about having been smitten since the first time I saw her. She snapped, smooth talker, but I caught the smile hiding in her eyes. My father revealed one more thing. Phil had been my mother's student. This marriage would fulfill a wish my late mother had carried. Phil's expression flickered when my mother was mentioned. Clearly, losing her teacher had been painful. Phil excused herself quickly after that. My father told me to stay. The heavy doors closed. Just the 2 of us remained, with only the crackling fireplace filling the silence. The old count studied me as if seeing me properly for the first time. My father studied me and said Phil was an impressive woman, a baroness who had never married, voluntarily offering to wed me. By marrying her, I'd instantly gain wealth, status, and influence in the north. But he couldn't understand why. Even out of loyalty to her late teacher, my mother, it made no sense for a ruler to give up that much. He asked me directly, was this the result of a love affair, or something else? I was just a silver contract master with no title. What did I have that a gold-rank baroness needed? I had no answer. He was right. What could Phil possibly want from me? Then my father warned me. Everything Phil brought to this marriage, the title, the land, the power, belonged to the Zepesh family, not to me personally. I need to keep her happy, while also making sure her family didn't discard me someday. If they did, I'd have nothing. Or worse. But he reminded me that I would always be a Villaret, and my roots were here in Azure Harbor, in the south. I replayed everything in my mind. The timeline was suspicious. Selena took us on a mission. Both my pets broke through to silver. I beat Roger's team. We witnessed the Gold King Beast duel. I passed out. And when I woke up, Hea told me about an arranged marriage. Then Selena conveniently got injured and had Phil substitute as our mentor. From their very first meeting, Phil had already called my training family business. Selena might have been pulling strings behind this entire arrangement. What were these two women plotting together? I thanked my father and left without asking the other questions burning in my mind, like how my mother really died. He wouldn't have answered anyway. In my room, a girl was lying on my bed. Light blue hair, pink eyes, white dress, a gardenia flower in her hair. My little sister Gloria, the only girl among 19 siblings and the youngest of us all. She pouted and complained that I'd never replied to any of her letters. I scolded her for sleeping in my bed again. She burrowed deeper into the covers and said my scent made her feel safe. She spotted Tilipy and Vivian and immediately wanted to play with them. I told her they weren't toys, but both pets seemed curious about her. Tilipy flew to Gloria's head and scattered golden pollen to mark territory, then called her stupid master's sister, but admitted she didn't seem stupid. Gloria sneezed from the pollen and got annoyed, then realized Tilipy could talk and shrieked that the tulip had become a demon. Tilipy stomped the air furiously. I'm not a demon. I evolved. I'm a noble tulip fairy. Gloria poked Tilipy with her finger, asking to be friends. Tilipy dodged and scolded her for being rude, but then blushed and agreed in a tiny voice. Vivian peeked out from my arms and chirped at Gloria too, wagging her tail happily. Gloria begged to hold her, and Vivian agreed before I could even answer. My sister cradled the little mermaid and muttered jealously about wanting her own contract home so she could raise spirit pets too. While I was settling in at home, my eldest brother Locke was across the city in the Azure Harbor Government Hall, giving a speech to city officials. He's the acting governor of the port, middle-aged, blue hair slicked back, polished and calculated. He was proposing a charity foundation for the city's roughly 3,000 street children, arguing that ignoring them today meant creating tomorrow's criminals. The wealthy merchants in the room didn't mind donating. They just needed to know how to funnel the money back to themselves. Locke understood their game perfectly and had his secretary lay out the transparent procurement rules. Locke has been the confirmed first heir for almost 100 years now. When he returned to the estate and heard I was home with a fiancée from the Zepesh family, his brow tightened. Our father is dying. Everyone knows the power transfer countdown has started. The last thing Locke needs is a forgotten little brother suddenly reappearing on the board backed by a northern military noble house. He muttered that he hoped the Zepesh family wouldn't cause him trouble, then went to his study and sent a letter to the Imperial Beast Academy. After that, he grabbed a gift box and headed to the main hall with a smile, ready for the birthday celebration. The old count's party was the biggest event of the year. Nearly every important noble and figure in the entire southern province attended. Even Marquis Aubrey, the provincial governor, came in person, though mainly to judge how much longer my father had left to live. When the tall, hawk-eyed Marquis stepped out of his carriage, even our unshakable butler Abel straightened his spine. None of this political maneuvering involved me yet. I was just walking out of my room with Gloria clinging to my arm, begging to sleep in my bed again. She claimed it was technically her room now since she'd been using it the whole time I was away. I pinched her cheek and told her to go back to her own room. Then Phil appeared at my door, leaning against the frame with her arms crossed. She watched our sibling affection with an unreadable expression and asked coolly whether we were always this close. Gloria tightened her grip on my arm the moment she heard Phil's voice, her eyes full of suspicion. I didn't know what to call my fiancé, so I just tried, Phil. She walked up, lifted my chin with one finger, and told me we needed to attend my father's party and get back to the academy, not argue about sleeping arrangements. Then she kissed me right in front of Gloria. It caught me off guard, the scent of a mature woman filling my senses. Gloria's eyes went wide and she shoved us apart, nearly in tears. Don't kiss my brother. He's mine. You bad woman. Phil just laughed, completely unbothered, and called it, stamping the seal of approval. Gloria buried herself in my arm alongside Vivian and Tilipy, all three competing for space. She choked out that once this woman married in, she'd make her pay. Vivian patted Gloria's head and cooed comfortingly. Tilipy flew to her ear and whispered that stupid master definitely loved her most and even said her name in his sleep. A complete lie, but it worked. Then Tilipy realized she'd spoken out loud in front of Phil, who she wasn't supposed to talk around. She slapped both hands over her mouth. Phil's stride faltered for just a second. She now knew my tulip could speak, but she said nothing and kept walking. The banquet hall was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers, court music, hundreds of guests. Our arrival didn't draw much attention. Phil, despite being a baroness, was a minor northern noble in a room full of southern powerhouses. But people noticed I'd landed a titled wife. The gossip was obvious. The husband has no title, but the wife does. The legal implications were clear to everyone. If we ever divorced, Phil would keep any children since they'd inherit her title. But if she died while we were married, I'd be first in line to inherit her barony. The title could only pass to our joint children. Any kids from a remarriage would get nothing. Still, plenty of people were jealous that I'd essentially skipped decades of climbing. Nobody bothered me at the party. Causing trouble for a count's son at the count's own birthday celebration would be declaring war on the family. Nobody was that stupid. Even my brothers wouldn't make a move here. Nobles live and die by appearances, and public confrontation is tantamount to attacking the entire house. The real daggers hide behind warm smiles and polite questions at events like this. Then a familiar face approached, Aline, a viscount's widow who was friendly with our family. She smiled and greeted me, but I could tell she wasn't happy about my engagement. The truth was, she and I had history. She'd married a man she hated, he died, and somewhere in those lonely years she'd met me. We'd shared a few secret, pleasant encounters. Now she stood before me with her wine glass, the picture of composure, but I knew what that look in her eyes meant. Eileen approached in a sapphire blue off-shoulder gown, pearl necklace against pale skin, a butterfly earring made of green gemstone on her left ear, one I'd given her. I kissed the back of her gloved hand, as etiquette demanded. Her fingers curled slightly in my palm, a tiny tell behind her perfect smile. She teased that my manners had improved, her tone carrying a meaning only I could catch. Phil stood nearby, silently watching us. Then the gift-giving began. My eldest brother Locke went first, for servants carried in a massive ship model carved entirely from sapphire, nearly as tall as a man, glowing with water element energy and embedded with 10 tidal hearts. He declared it the unsinkable ship, symbolizing the family's eternal prosperity. Father said, "I'm very satisfied," the highest praise of the evening. Second brother Carl followed with dazzling art pieces and rare health tonics. Father gave everyone else the same lukewarm. How thoughtful. Eileen swirled her wine and pointed out that my 2 eldest brothers, one the city governor, one the head of the trading guild, had resources nobody could compete with. She was trying to provoke me, but I didn't take the bait. After brother 17 finished his turn, I handed Vivian and Tillapi to Gloria and walked toward the grand piano at the side of the hall. Empty-handed. Everyone watched, confused. My music teacher had never praised my playing, and Father knew I wasn't an artist. But I sat down, placed my fingers on the keys, and played the Game of Thrones theme, a piece that doesn't exist in this world. My technique wasn't flawless, but it didn't need to be. The deep, solemn notes crashed through the hall like warning bells from the depths of history. Honor, betrayal, sacrifice. The music spoke directly to power and fate, crushing every jeweled gift that came before it. Guests froze mid-conversation. Noble ladies clutched their chests. Even Marquis Aubrey, the provincial governor, set down his glass with a grave expression and quietly ordered a servant to record everything with a magic stone. Eileen's wine glass hung forgotten in her hand. She finally understood. I was no longer the boy who needed her secret comfort. Phil narrowed her eyes. She hadn't expected this kind of ambition from me. Father's expression was the most complex of all. This music wasn't flattery. It was a dissection of the very power game he'd built this family on. The hall also recognized something bigger. The Villaret family, long dismissed as nouveau riche by old blood houses, now possessed artistic depth. In high society, cultural sophistication is the invisible line between wealthy merchants and true aristocracy. When the last note faded, the hall fell into suffocating silence. I stood, bowed to my father, and said, "This is my gift to you, Father." After a long pause, he asked what it was called. "The Game of Power, Father." He repeated the name quietly, studied me again, and said, "I'm very satisfied." Locke and Carl both frowned. Until tonight, they'd been the only ones to earn those exact words. Marquis Aubrey turned to me and addressed me as Mr. Wren, a title of respect a governor doesn't give lightly. He asked permission to present my composition to the emperor, saying His Majesty would surely appreciate such a profound work. Father's eyes sharpened for a split second when the Marquis made his offer. He knew Aubrey was deliberately stirring up competition among his sons. Neither Locke nor Carl had ever gotten a chance to appear before the emperor. But father also recognized the opportunity. He accepted on my behalf, telling me to thank the governor. By doing so, he was publicly signaling that I was now a serious investment for the family, not just a forgotten youngest son. Locke and Carl exchanged a look. They were both legitimate sons. No matter how fiercely they fought each other, neither would tolerate a bastard like me rising to challenge them. But by the time they finished scheming, I was already in my carriage heading back to the academy. Inside the carriage with Phil and my two pets sat an extra passenger. A white cat with fur like fresh snow tinged with icy blue, radiating visible cold that dropped the temperature inside. Its most striking feature was its mismatched eyes. One frozen pale blue, one stormy silver gray. My system identified it immediately, an extreme frost phantom cat, juvenile stage, silver 3-star. Cultivation value, 8 out of 10. Future ultimate forms included 9 life goddess, winter cat ear empress, or frost order sovereign. This was Phil's dowry. But the cat glanced at me once and looked away, completely uninterested. That made sense. My female kill trait only works on pets after they've contracted with me, not before. Phil explained it was a rare specimen from the north with the best natural talent of any frost phantom cat ever found. Even she, a gold-rank contract master, couldn't get it to agree to a contract. She told me if I couldn't win it over either, she'd return it to the northern wilds. I had 70 points from daily interactions with Tilipy and Vivian. I opened the system shop, specifically the Spirit Pet Intimate Items category. There were 3 options for cat-type pets. Catnip perfume for 50 points that makes cats relaxed and infatuated. A synchronized heart ice chain for 70 points. A necklace that converts part of any discomfort the wearer feels into pleasure. And a special teasing wand for 100 points. I had exactly 70, so the necklace it was. The chain materialized in my hand. Eternal ice crystals linked together with a heart-shaped ruby at the center. The design reminded me of something questionable, but I pushed that thought aside. The cat hissed at the necklace immediately, sensing something fishy. But with Phil's gold rank pressure suppressing it, I managed to clasp the chain around its neck. Then I grabbed its white tail and lifted the whole cat up. What happened next was remarkable. Being lifted by the tail should be uncomfortable for any cat. The white cat started to hiss, but the sound came out with an unmistakable purr of pleasure underneath. I checked its status, confused, sensitive, developing initial special dependency on host. I tossed the cat to the floor. It jumped right back onto my lap, rubbed its head against my arm, and started purring deeply. "So you're just a little pushover," I said with a contemptuous look. But strangely, the more disdain I showed, the more the cat nuzzled against me, making sweet little mewling sounds. "What happened to that cold attitude from 2 minutes ago?" I laughed dismissively. Phil watched in disbelief. She'd spent who knows how long trying to win this cat over, and I'd broken it in 30 seconds with a weird necklace and some attitude. "Fine. I'll graciously agree to contract you," I said, and my silver tome lit up the carriage with light. I named the cat Sherry. The tome page filled in: Extreme Frost Phantom Cat, Silver 3-star, Ice and Dark Attributes. 3 skills: Frost Scar Claw Strike that leaves wounds with lingering frostbite and dark corrosion pain. Ice Shadow Mirage, where her shadow comes alive to deliver a double attack. And Winter's Shelter that creates an ice shield absorbing damage and freezing any enemy hit by water element. The system rewarded me 500 points for contracting an 8-star potential pet, bringing my total to 500, enough to finally handle Christie's umbrella evolution. After the contract sealed, Sherry immediately wanted to nuzzle against me nonstop. As a female kill contract master, I knew I had to maintain balance. I let her settle in my right arm, while Vivian sat on my left, and Tilipy nestled in my chest. I was already covered in pets-like ornaments. What would happen when they grew bigger? What about a 4th or 5th pet? Tilipy and Vivian eyed the newcomer curiously, but Sherry didn't even acknowledge them. She only had eyes for me. They wouldn't fight in front of Phil, but the future worried me. Phil watched me petting the cat and admitted she'd underestimated the female kill trait's power. She couldn't understand the attraction, but she wasn't a spirit pet. She couldn't feel what they felt. Apparently, after contracting with me, even my scent becomes intoxicating to them, and being held by me feels like the warmest, softest bed in existence. We returned to the academy in a single day. I went straight to visit Selena. She sat across from me in an elegant white elven dress with gold leg bands over white stockings, and I couldn't help noticing emerald green nail polish on her toes. Honestly, the color didn't match the white stockings. Deep red or emerald works better with dark stockings for a mature look. Phil understood this perfectly. White stockings need softer tones, cherry blossom pink or pearl white. With the gold bands, gold nail polish would have been the right choice. Selena was focused on Sherry until she realized I hadn't responded. She looked up and caught exactly where my eyes had been staring. A rare blush crossed her normally icy face. I scrambled to cover with a compliment about her unique color combination. She tried to move on professionally, analyzing my team composition. Ice and water pair well. The mermaid's water complements the cat's ice. The tulip fairy's light subattribute has minor conflict with the cat's dark subattribute. But her ears stayed pink and her speech was slightly too fast, betraying that she wasn't as composed as she pretended. Finally, she gave up the act, set her coffee cup down with a sharp clink, and said directly, "I mind that you were staring at my feet the entire time." The moment it left her mouth, she covered her lips in surprise at her own bluntness, completely out of character for her usual cold composure. "Forget I said that," she recovered quickly. "Phil told me you played an epic piano piece at the banquet. Play it for me now." Consider it your apology. She was definitely still upset. I just hoped this Ice Queen wouldn't hold a grudge for too long. I wasn't surprised Selena wanted to hear the piece. She loved music. I told her it was my honor and suggested we could connect more through music. She cut me off with an impatient, "Less talking, play now," a flash of petulance that clashed with her usual Ice Queen composure. Christie's had been right about the hidden gap in her personality. I sat at the piano and played. Selena closed her eyes and listened. When the final note fell, she opened them again with emotions I'd never seen in her before. Awe, admiration, curiosity. She stood up, stroked my hair, and said my music showed her a different possible future for elves in the Tylo Empire. She wanted us to discuss deeper things beyond just contract master training. Music, history, philosophy, politics, the coexistence of different races. Then she hit me with something I didn't expect. She said that creating a piece like The Game of Power required extraordinary life experience and insight, not something a sheltered, easygoing noble boy who secretly sleeps with widows could pull off. She looked me straight in the eye and told me my heart was lying. I was a man who craved power. How did she know about Eileen? I'd never told anyone. Was it Phil who noticed something between us at the party and told her? Or was this just a woman's intuition? Then a wild thought crossed my mind. Christie's had once said that if you just kissed this ice-cold woman, something incredible would happen. Before Selena could finish her goodbye, I moved. I stepped forward, wrapped my arm around her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her. Her ice-blue eyes went wide with shock. Tillapi, Vivian, and even Sherry the cat all froze like statues. I won't say what happened after the kiss, but when I got back to the dorm, Hea immediately noticed a lipstick mark on my cheek. She didn't ask questions or show any displeasure. She simply took out a handkerchief, carefully wiped it clean, then kissed the same spot herself, a quiet way of reclaiming her territory. I was a bit frustrated that Selena had stopped things before they went further, but I'd seen a side of her nobody else gets to see. Whatever I didn't get from Selena, I made up for with Hea that night. The next morning, I felt refreshed. After breakfast and a goodbye kiss from Hea, I headed out to meet the team. Selena gathered us at the Academy Plaza for a new mission. She was back to her cold, composed self in her white elven dress, but every time her eyes landed on me, she'd quickly look away. A deliberate distance that only I understood. While Orlina and Joanna chatted ahead of us on the way to the teleportation array, I quietly caught up to Selena and grabbed her hand. It was cool and impossibly soft, with the faint chill elves naturally carry. Her eyes flew open. She whispered through clenched teeth for me to let go, staring straight ahead and pretending nothing was happening. But to me, that hissing protest sounded exactly like flirting. Selena couldn't believe I'd dared to grab her hand, especially since my fiancé was her own best friend. but I knew when to pull back. We were outside, and eyes were everywhere. I just wanted to test her reaction. We teleported to the Empire's western region, a volatile area bordering a neighboring country, rich in resources but plagued by unrest. Local nobles and the crown played political games here constantly. In a border town called Weishell, things were tense in ways I hadn't expected. Outside a rundown wooden shack, a young man named Paulie was fighting with his mother. She begged him to stop going to the tavern where dangerous people gathered. He shouted back about how she'd slaved away on Baron Morris's estate for pennies while nobles lived in luxury, doing nothing. His father had been beaten to death by a nobleman. He stormed off. That night, the tavern was packed with farmers, laborers, mercenaries, and criminals. A short middle-aged man named Lore, a war veteran, stood before them and gave a speech. 13 years ago, he and both his sons went to fight in a war between the Tylo Empire and the Orsa Empire. Only he came back alive. He called the war a fraud, a scheme by the powerful. He demanded to know who should answer for it. When he asked who was to blame, silence fell, until Polly jumped up and screamed, "Bloodsuckers!" Lore pointed at him and echoed the word. The tavern erupted. Men pounded tables and roared curses. This wasn't just one town. Similar scenes were playing out across the western border region. Selena led us through Weishell's crumbling streets and explained our mission: walk through the town, observe everything, and write down what we saw. Joanna asked how a recording mission could involve combat. Selena's answer was chilling. Combat doesn't only happen when swords clash, she said. Every word you write could become a footnote to a future storm or a death sentence for someone. The battle here is about information and perspective. Every question you ask, every conversation you have, must be weighed carefully. She reminded us that as Imperial Beast Academy students, we represented the Empire's future elite. This town bordered the Orsa Empire, meaning foreign agents were definitely present. If they identified us, we'd become targets. Getting here safely and getting back safely, that alone counts as mission complete. But there were dangers she didn't mention. Local nobles would be watching us too. If Academy people from the capital showed up in any lord's territory to observe and record, the local ruler would read 1,000 meanings into it, whether we were sent by someone powerful or not. Just being from the imperial capital and taking notes was enough to make us a threat in their eyes. We all disguised ourselves. Selena especially. An elf stands out anywhere, and a noble elf in a backwater border town would raise immediate suspicion. I also had to sweet-talk all 3 pets into entering the contract tome with endless kisses, hugs, and promises. They reluctantly agreed to a temporary separation. Anyone seeing my pets would instantly identify me as a contract master. We spotted a confrontation outside a crumbling stone house. An old woman in a leather coat was harassing the veteran Lore about unpaid rent. He exploded. He and his 2 sons had fought on the front lines 13 years ago. Both boys died. He lost a leg, and the house had been assigned to him by the Western Provincial Government for veterans. He demanded to know by what authority this town accountant was collecting rent on a house that should be free, and whether the money went into public accounts or her own pocket. She couldn't answer and just muttered about following orders. Orlina and Joanna were visibly angry watching this. I stayed calm. Growing up as a noble, I'd heard plenty of conversations about how to keep commoners obedient. I understood that when every class is grabbing what it can from the system, it's a sign the Empire's foundations are cracking. Selena understood too. She said nothing, let no one speak up, had us silently record everything, and moved on. Lore could have produced medals and documents proving his rights. He could have proved his wealth had been stolen. But none of that would matter here. There were too many people like him, and everyone in power knew it. We walked through town. Starving children dug through garbage for food. Hollow-eyed women stared at empty rice containers. Jeweled carriages raced down the streets. Drunk patrol guards wandered aimlessly. That evening at an inn, Selena told me to visit a place called the Broken Axe Tavern alone after dark. Joanna and Orlina had to stay. Women couldn't wander outside at night in a place like this without revealing their strength, which would blow our cover. Our identities getting exposed here would cause far bigger problems than we could handle. I threw on a worn coat and headed out. Selena's quiet, "Be careful," followed me through the door. The nighttime streets were dead silent except for wind and distant dogs. I found the tavern easily by following the noise and beer smell. The place was packed with rough men at crude wooden tables. I sat down casually. A skinny young man elbowed me. It was Polly, the same kid who'd screamed, "Bloodsuckers," at the tavern rally. He asked where I was from. I told him I was a bookkeeper traveling with a merchant caravan, just drowning my sorrows over a bad day. A beefy man looked me over skeptically, noting I didn't look like the laboring type. I shrugged and said I just pushed numbers for a living. The burly guy at my table envied that I could read. Most of them couldn't even understand the notices posted at the town hall. Then Polly hushed everyone and started chanting, "Lore, lore." The whole tavern joined in. I stayed quiet since I was new. Lore took the stage and did something insane. He named the previous emperor, Tylo 12, directly. The room froze. Even I gripped my cup tighter. He called the emperor a liar who'd sent them to war under the banner of imperial glory. I immediately focused my mind into my contract tome, ready to summon my pets at a moment's notice. This kind of talk was going to cause trouble. While checking in, I noticed the tome's inner space had changed. My 3 silver pets had started shaping it into a small world. Tillapi had created a grassy field with faint sunlight. Vivian had made a clear lake rich with water element. Sherry had built a small snow mountain at the edge. A miniature world was forming. Back in the tavern, Lore whipped the crowd into a frenzy. "We should fight for ourselves." The drinkers cheered, but asked how. Lore glanced at the tavern owner, who nodded. The doors slammed shut. The bolt dropped. The public bar became a sealed room. "Anyone who isn't from Weishell, stand up," Lore commanded. Every eye turned suspicious. My tablemates locked onto me instantly. I stood, sighed, and played my role, a bookkeeper from the Villaret family's Azure Trading Company, traveling back from the Orsa Empire with a merchant caravan, just out for a drink. The name Villaret made Lore's face darken. One of the Empire's most notorious bloodsuckers. Hostile stares came from every direction. But Lore didn't push it. He could tell from my accent I was genuinely from the south, and no noble's son would be sitting in a dump like this. He waved me back down and said everything discussed tonight would be open and transparent. I sat and silently raised my assessment of this man. That whole sequence, sealing the room, creating fear, then showing mercy, was textbook psychological control. He'd learned it from military officers during the war. Build authority through pressure, then convert potential threats into allies. Lore announced they were founding an organization uniting everyone who'd suffered injustice, not just in Weishell, but across the entire western region. His old war comrades in Windhelm City, Black Iron Fort, and elsewhere were doing the same thing. They called it the Revolutionary Tylo Society. He raised both hands and declared that whenever any member faced injustice, they'd all speak up, organize, even march in protest. I listened quietly and analyzed. A mob of random, poor people with no income source would collapse fast. At best, they'd become a street gang collecting protection money. The moment they committed real crimes, tax resistance, robbery, attacking noble property, the Empire's military would crush them overnight. But then Lore said something that changed my calculation entirely. Every new member would receive 2 silver coins per month for the first 3 months. 2 silver was enough to feed a family. Even freeloaders who planned to quit after 3 months would sign up. Lore didn't say where the money came from, but I knew what it meant. Someone wealthy was bankrolling this organization from behind the scenes. A patron with deep pockets and a plan. The time is almost here. Lore's voice rose with excitement. But first, we need to take care of one thing. The next day, I went to watch the Revolutionary Tylo Society in action. They'd gathered dozens of men outside the Blackstone mine to demand compensation for old Hans, a miner who'd worked there 20 years and lost a leg in a cave-in. The mine owner Dill was panicking inside his office. His guards were useless because many had friends and family in the crowd, and his own workers had joined the protest. 2. Lore stood at the front quoting actual imperial labor law, the Mine Safety and Workers' Rights Act, demanding full medical costs and at least 1 year's salary in compensation. Another man named Carl rallied the crowd even harder, threatening a full strike and telling workers they could find jobs elsewhere. That line caught my attention. Go work somewhere else implied the organization had the resources to relocate entire workforces. The network behind this was deeper than I'd imagined. The mine shut down completely. Every minute cost Dill money. He finally caved and paid 50 silver coins. though he was already planning to have the town mayor arrest Lore on some trumped-up charge later. I'd joined the society as part of my cover and was standing in the crowd the whole time. Back at the inn, I reported everything to Selena. She tapped the table and said we were leaving immediately. What was happening here was far beyond what we should be involved in. The deeper we dug, the more dangerous it got. She was a gold-rank contract master, but even she couldn't protect us if we got pulled into a regional uprising. As an elf, any involvement in internal unrest would be impossible for her to explain. And Joanna and Orlina, as commoners, were expendable in any noble's eyes. What we didn't know was that Baron Morris, the local lord, had already been tracking us. His butler reported that we'd arrived from the capital, that I'd been seen associating with Lore's group, and that I was present at the mine protest. The Baron didn't care about our official mission cover story. That boy knows too much, Morris said, crushing his cigar into his expensive desk. He can't leave alive. His butler hesitated. We were from the imperial capital. Morris didn't care. Capital students die too. Out here in the western wilderness, it could be bandits, monsters, Orsa agents, or rioters. Anyone could be the killer. He calculated that 100 cavalry would be enough to eliminate 3 academy students and 1 gold-rank contract master. Even if they couldn't kill everyone, as long as I died, there'd be no proof of anything. He didn't even bother to find out which family I belonged to. They'll encounter some horse bandits on the road very soon, the butler said with a bow. Selena hadn't chosen this mission. The year's supervisor had assigned it directly. If we'd only documented poverty and corruption, even a mob riot, it would have been manageable. But based on what I discovered, this revolutionary organization had a wealthy backer pulling strings. That made everything infinitely more dangerous. Selena just wanted to get us out. Then, on the road out, we ran into 100 cavalrymen. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Their war horses stood 2 meters tall, bred over generations with magic in their blood. The riders wore rune-engraved armor and carried enchanted weapons or crossbows loaded with anti-magic bolts. This was a noble lord's elite force, the kind kept hidden until it's time to kill. I couldn't figure out where they came from. A small-town baron shouldn't have the wealth for a unit like this. Were they from the Orsa Empire across the border? Get behind me. Selena's golden contract tome blazed open. The cavalry captain laughed coldly. They'd killed gold-rank contract masters before. He split his force instantly. 2 squads to flank and suppress any large summons with crossbow fire. 1 squad charging straight at me for a decapitation strike. 1 squad to cut off our retreat. A precision killing machine. But they'd miscalculated badly. Not all gold-rank contract masters are equal. Having 1 gold-level pet versus having several is a world of difference. Selena called out Little White and Little Blue, her gold 9-star Holy Sound twin butterflies. The white one released a sonic wave that made the warhorses scream in agony. The blue one dropped the temperature around us to freezing. Then a 3rd pet emerged from the tome. A 6-winged frost angel, gold 7-star, nearly 2 meters tall, blindfolded with white cloth, holding a light sword in one hand and a blue mirror in the other. She raised the mirror and bathed the entire cavalry in freezing blue light. Frost coated their armor instantly. The grass around them turned white. Selena controlled the entire battlefield by herself. Then a 4th pet appeared, a gold 8-star silver scale holy dragon princess named Idence, a girl with dragon horns wearing a silver dress. She spoke aloud, calling the cavalry lowly insects for daring to threaten her. Mother, Selena's eye twitched at the dramatic speech and told Idence to hurry up and transform into armor. The dragon girl fused into silver scales that layered over the frost angel, adding power and beauty to her form, creating a merged entity called the silver-winged dragon radiance angel. The angel dove from the sky toward the cavalry captain. His eyes went wide with terror. 1 person with 4 gold-level pets, covering crowd control, ranged attack, air-to-ground assault, and devastating single combat. It was a complete massacre. The entire 100-man cavalry unit was annihilated in moments. Selena recalled her pets into the tome and said quietly, "Let's go." I walked in silence. That cavalry's target had been me specifically. The captain had ordered them to behead the golden-haired boy at all costs. Had my brothers already reached out from home and interfered with academy missions? If Selena hadn't been here, Could I really stand against siblings who'd been scheming for decades, or even a century? This battle also showed me what a true gold rank contract master looked like. For talking, high-star gold pets working in perfect coordination. The gap between where I was and where I needed to be was enormous. I asked Selena if our mission was complete. She knew I wasn't really asking about the mission. Selena told us the mission technically failed. We were supposed to observe for a full week, but left early. The Academy Review Board would likely still award us some stars based on circumstances. Orlina and Joanna were relieved it wasn't for nothing, but I heard what Selena actually meant. This mission had been assigned directly by the year's supervisor, not chosen by Selena. That confirmed my suspicion. My brothers had manipulated the Academy's mission system to send me into the chaotic western border, where local nobles or rebels could eliminate me. Even if I died, it would look like an accident. Back at my dorm, I sat with wine and seethed. This was definitely Locke and Carl's doing. Noble siblings don't need a face-to-face conflict to kill each other. Heya noticed my mood and came to comfort me, but then announced Christie's was visiting. I told Heya to seat her in the side room and wait. I had something to do first. I went to my study, picked up a quill, and wrote a letter to my father. Not a complaint. That would be beneath me, and I had no hard evidence. Nobles have their own ways of striking back. I described my trip to the western border, the poverty, the unrest, the desperation. Then I mentioned being attacked by unidentified armed cavalry and expressed concern. Could there be military forces in Azure Harbor that didn't answer to father? Then I made my real move. I proposed creating a strategic materials tax bureau in Azure Harbor. Every transaction involving grain, weapons, steel, war horses, ship supplies, and magic would be tracked, supplier, origin, middleman, buyer, and all funds. The Bureau would set annual sales quotas for local merchants, meet the target and get a tax rebate, fall short and get taxed harder. Underperforming meant either incompetence or secret dealings. This wasn't just taxation, it was an intelligence apparatus. Who's buying weapons? Who's hoarding grain? Where's the money flowing? Which outside forces are involved? For Locke, the governor, this meant father would carve away his administrative power. For Carl, the trade guild president, it meant his entire merchant class would be under strict surveillance. Whatever they'd been doing behind father's back would become impossible to hide. Would father agree? Absolutely. This centralizes his power and strengthens family control over the territory. Every aging ruler's top priorities are personal authority and personal safety. Emperors kill their own sons. Counts certainly do. This was driving one tiger to devour two wolves. I sealed the letter with the family crest, gave it to Heya to send home, and went to meet Christie's. She was waiting in her usual black Gothic Lolita dress, tapping her teacup impatiently. I handed her the evolution plan I'd redeemed from the system, Shadow Moon Canopy, Dark and Order attributes. She kicked off her shoes in excitement, swinging her feet like a kid, completely abandoning any noble composure. The materials were affordable, 1 shadow crystal daily and 10 milliliters of moonvine sap weekly. She could evolve within a month. She looked at me with genuine gratitude and said if this worked, I could do some not too outrageous things to her during the school year. Back in Azure Harbor, my letter landed exactly as planned. Locke and Carl confronted father about the Strategic Materials Tax Bureau, arguing that commerce needs freedom. Father just repeated the word, freedom, twice in that quietly terrifying way of his, and both sons crumbled. Carl yielded first, then Locke. The old man didn't need to explain or threaten. He simply was unreasonable, and everyone knew it. After they left, father stroked my letter and murmured, "Ren, you devious good boy." The two brothers retreated to a private room. Carl exploded, smashing the table. This bureau would keep him under surveillance even after father died, since Locke was the named heir. He suspected Locke had planted the idea while playing innocent. Locke, meanwhile, was secretly thrilled. Father was handing him a control mechanism over Carl. Let the old man monitor them both for now. Once he died, Carl would be completely at Locke's mercy. Then Locke stood and said he'd heard. A Villaret was attacked in the west, and as the eldest brother he needed to demand answers from the western nobles. Carl froze. Locke was going to use my near assassination to build political capital and look like the protective big brother. Bastard. Carl cursed under his breath, alone in the wrecked room. Meanwhile, at the academy, Christie's kissed my cheek as payment for the evolution plan, then left with a smirk. I released my 3 pets, who immediately demanded attention. Tillapi scolded me for letting that dark woman kiss me. Vivian wrapped her arms around my neck and stared at me until I kissed her forehead. Sherry climbed onto my chest and licked my face. I kissed all 3. Balance was everything. Each interaction gave me 30 points. Total, 390. The 3,000 I needed for gold rank evolution methods felt impossibly far away, but 90 points per day was a solid pace. The academy wasn't just missions. There were theory classes, sparring sessions, and a full social calendar. The school had racetracks, ski slopes, opera houses, art galleries, music halls, and ballrooms. Students came from across the empire and even foreign kingdoms. Thanks to the game of power, I'd gained a reputation in noble circles for artistic depth. Noble women and young ladies were suddenly interested in me. And with an entire planet's worth of classical music in my head, I'd never run out of material. Then someone truly important arrived at the academy, specifically for me. Mizera Tylo, the late emperor's wife. She could be called Empress Dowager or simply Empress, because the current ruler of the Tylo Empire was her daughter. Empress Mizera visited the academy, and the entire institution went into overdrive. The headmistress, 3 vice principals, all supervisors and mentors. Everyone came out in full formal reception. The headmistress even ordered good-looking students to line up for the welcome ceremony. I was naturally called. Her royal carriage stopped at the gates. A woman stepped out, deep purple gown with gold phoenix embroidery, black stockings under the hem, crimson heels with black gems, a diamond crown catching cold light on her chestnut hair. Her face was flawless, and her crimson eyes had golden 6-pointed stars slowly rotating inside them. The headmistress, herself a noble, dropped into a deep court curtsy. Royal guards in black armor and crimson cloaks poured into the academy, silently seizing every entrance, passage, and vantage point. The entire campus was now under the Empress's military control. This was real power. This was the life I craved. One gesture, and the world bows. As she walked past our line of students, she stopped. Her rotating crimson eyes locked onto me. You. My heart jumped. I bowed immediately. Your Highness, Ren Villaret, awaiting your command. Selena and Phil, standing with the mentors, both went pale. The Empress beckoned me forward. I knelt on one knee and kissed the diamond ring on her black-gloved hand. Cold stone and silk and the scent of royal iris perfume. Raise your head. Let me look at you. She examined my face, ran her fingers through my hair, and smiled down at me. The game of power? Those casual words hit harder than any rebuke. She said I'd never witnessed true power, yet had somehow captured it in music. She liked the piece. She liked me. But being petted on the head while kneeling, treated like an obedient pet in front of the entire academy, filled me with quiet fury. Before I could speak, the headmistress jumped in to offer a live performance in the music hall. The Empress agreed, but wanted more. Not just the recorded piece, but new compositions. I swallowed my pride and answered gracefully, saying I had some new fragments of inspiration and would be honored to present them for her critique. She twirled a strand of my gold hair around her finger, then gave it a sharp little tug before finally releasing me. I look forward to your new work. Rise, my good boy. I stood and followed at the back of the procession, feeling the weight of envious and jealous stares from every direction. To everyone else, this was the luckiest day of my life. Personal attention from the Empress. To me, it was humiliation I'd remember. In the music hall, the Empress sat front row with only the headmistress beside her. Everyone else sat 3 rows back. She leaned toward the headmistress and said quietly, "This child has a rebellious streak." She said it like she was noting a tiny flaw in a porcelain vase. The headmistress, who barely knew me, responded diplomatically. His strong opinions were probably why he could compose something like The Game of Power, The Spirit of Youth. The Empress smiled. Spirit? I like spirited children. I walked onto the stage, bowed to the Empress and the headmistress, and sat at the piano. I played The Game of Power first. The Empress closed her eyes and tapped along on her armrest. Students and mentors who'd never heard it were stunned. Christie's looked ecstatic. This kind of dark, fateful music was made for a gothic girl like her. When it ended, thunderous applause. The Empress silenced the room with a word and asked for my new work. I played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The first movement, slow, deep, mournful, made the audience feel every lonely night I'd spent as the Academy's laughingstock with my useless tulip. The second movement brought lightness and grace. Then the third movement exploded like a storm, violent and uncontrollable. Christie's was trembling with excitement. Selena and Phil were shocked by the raw fury hidden inside me. When the last devastating chord struck, the hall went dead silent. After a long pause, the Empress began clapping, and everyone followed. She asked the name. I told her, Moonlight Sonata. She repeated, Moonlight, with a strange smile, then said the third movement wasn't moonlight at all. It was love. Wild, burning, barely controlled love. She licked her lips as she said it, the golden stars in her crimson eyes spinning faster. Then she made her move. She said the Beast Academy wasn't the right place for me. I belonged at the Imperial Art Academy, a better platform for my talent. Every mentor tensed. The headmistress panicked. If I agreed, I'd leave the beast-taming world entirely and become the Empress's pet artist. They all expected me to accept. You don't refuse an Empress. But I did. I told her music was like breathing to me, but raising spirit pets and fighting alongside them was where my inspiration came from. I couldn't create without that life. Her eyes flickered with disappointment. She stood abruptly and left with a curt, "Very well." The headmistress rushed after her. She was angry. After the crowd dispersed, Selena called me to her quarters, clearly furious. She jabbed her finger at my nose and started lecturing me about what refusing the Empress would mean, but I grabbed her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her mid-sentence. She tried to push me away, but didn't really use force. When she finally caught her breath, she was flushed and flustered. I told her I knew exactly what I was doing, both refusing the Empress and kissing her. She said I'd bring disaster on myself. I said some risks were worth taking, implying I'd rejected the Empress for her sake. She protested that she was Phil's best friend and I was Phil's fiancé. I pinned her wrists against the wall and asked if she truly wouldn't have cared if I'd left for the Art Academy. Before she could finish denying it, I kissed her again. Meanwhile, in the private garden the headmistress had prepared for the Empress, Mizera sat alone by a fountain, her heels off, black-stockinged feet trailing in the cool water. She replayed everything, my face while playing, my movements, the wild soul inside my music. Wild love, a rebellious child, so full of life, she murmured, licking her lips, the golden stars in her eyes spinning madly. Then her self-control snapped completely. Aisha, go bring that bad boy to me. Hurry, I can't wait. I need to discipline him immediately. I just left Selena's place. Unsuccessful again, but calmer, when a massive figure blocked my path. The Royal Guard captain, Aisha, stood nearly 2.5 meters tall in gold armor with a crimson cape, her hand resting on her sword hilt. The Empress requests your presence. Her tone made clear this wasn't optional. I was led to a private bathhouse of white jade with magic flower petals floating on the water. Servants stripped and bathed me without asking permission, dressed me in a robe, then blindfolded me with black cloth. Aisha's cold voice told me not to ask questions and not to remove the blindfold. I was guided through corridors until a door closed behind me. The air smelled of royal iris perfume, the Empress's scent. A finger with wine-red nail polish traced across my chest, then pulled me forward by the hand. Lie down, bad boy, she commanded. I fell back on his silk sheets. Then warmth. 3 days. I was kept for 3 entire days. When I finally returned to my dorm, Heyu's hands trembled as she applied medicine to the bite marks on my neck. Not just my neck, my collarbone, my shoulders, everywhere was covered in bruises, scratches, and marks that told the story without words. I couldn't explain. I didn't want to. I'd been blindfolded the entire time. The Empress had taken what she wanted with absolute power, and I couldn't even see her face. If a servant hadn't interrupted with urgent palace business, she might never have let me go. I clenched my fists. Damn her. Meanwhile, at the academy gates, the headmistress Vanessa was seeing the Empress off. Mizera sat in her carriage looking radiant and satisfied, like a rose after morning dew. She casually ordered Aisha to bring out a box of treasures, a blazing dragon blood fruit and dragon blood gold thread red obsidian, both radiating powerful energy. She called them a small compensation for my naughty boy's hard work these past few days and an investment in his musical talent. She demanded a new composition within 1 month and said she'd return to hear it personally. Then she told Vanessa to take good care of her bad boy. After the Empress left, Vanessa called Phil to her office. She showed Phil the treasures and explained that the Empress wanted Ren focused on composing. Missions and beast-taming studies could be relaxed. The Academy would award me sufficient stars to graduate with honors regardless. Vanessa chose to discuss this with Phil rather than Selena. As my fiancé and a mentor, Phil's agreement would settle everything. I sat across from Phil in my room after sending everyone else away. She told me the deal. Stop doing missions, stay available for whenever the Empress visits, and create new compositions on demand. Selena had already agreed. The Academy would compensate me with enough stars to graduate with honors. I asked if keeping the Empress happy could earn me 100 stars. Phil looked at me like I was an idiot. Your vision is too small, she snapped. That woman is the Empress. You could kill yourself earning 300 stars for a baron title, or you could make her happy for 1 year, and she'd toss you a barony like pocket change. Even without a title, every noble house in the empire would fight to recruit you afterward. You'd know her preferences, her habits, her moods. You'd be a walking insider. Just saying, I was personally summoned by the Empress multiple times to discuss art and philosophy, would open every door in the empire. She pulled me into her arms. Trust me, everyone else might hurt you, but would I? I leaned into her embrace and told her I understood. She kissed me, then warned me to stop being clingy or she'd devour me completely. Then she explained the gifts. The blazing dragon blood fruit was too potent for my current body. I should give it to Tilope, who'd know how to feed it to me safely. The dragon blood gold thread red obsidian was different. It would resonate with a trace of dragon blood energy the Empress had left inside me during those 3 days. Wearing it would constantly strengthen my body and turn me into a tireless little beast. Phil licked her lips and said she personally appreciated that benefit. But it also served as a brand. Any powerful person who sensed it would know I belonged to Empress Mizera. Protection and ownership in one. I was stunned. The Empress has dragon blood? Phil smiled. She's just contracted several pure-blooded dragon pets. Dragon-related treasures are like snacks to her. She pressed the obsidian into my chest. It melted directly into my body. Instantly my blood felt like liquid fire. A wild, primal force surged through every limb. My eyes went red, my breathing turned heavy, and I shoved Phil against the wall on pure instinct. How does it feel, my little beast? She wasn't surprised at all. But when I tried to kiss her, she placed her hand on my head and said firmly, "Calm down. Be good." Her voice dropped low and magnetic. Remember this feeling, remember this power, but don't let it control you. Elegant women want a beast who knows when to hold back, not a mad dog that only knows how to bark. I froze. My breathing slowed, but my body still felt like it was about to explode. Phil pushed me onto the sofa and told me to sit there for 1 hour without moving. No female creature, not even my pets, could be near me right now. I had to endure it alone. Then she left. That hour was pure torture. The dragon blood power burned through me like lava. Every cell in my body screamed for release. I punched the door, cursed Phil's name, begged her to come back. She stood outside the whole time, smoking a cigarette, timing me with a silver pocket watch, smiling at my wild thrashing. When the hour ended, she opened the door to find the room destroyed, furniture smashed, sofa torn apart, and me passed out on the ruined couch. She licked her lips, looked at my sleeping face, and began unbuttoning my shirt. The next morning, I woke up feeling calmer. Heo was dozing at my bedside. Phil had left strict instructions. I had to abstain for 3 days while Tilope helped me absorb the dragon blood fruit properly. Hea blushed, explaining this was for everyone's happiness. I took a deep breath, accepted it, and asked for my morning routine, but not before claiming my mandatory morning kiss. We held that one a while. After breakfast, I looked at my 3 pets. Sherry eats frost whisper berries from the northern tundra, 3 gold coins each. Between all 3 pets, I was spending 8 or 9 gold coins a day on food alone. Thankfully, my family allowance had been raised to 500 gold per month. I took out the dragon blood fruit and handed it to Tilope. Vivian and Sherry recoiled from its fiery aura, but Tilope's orange eyes lit up instantly. I told her it was for me to consume, though she could sneak a few bites. She needed to figure out how to help me absorb it safely. She puffed up proudly, declaring that nothing could defeat the greatest tulip fairy alive, then hugged the fist-sized fruit, almost as big as her entire body, and dove into the contract tome, yelling that I wasn't allowed to peek. I turned to Vivian and kissed her. She blushed and squirmed as always. Then something incredible happened. She opened her mouth, struggling hard, and whispered, "Duh. Duh. Hug." My heart exploded. Vivian had learned her first words. I crushed her against my chest, overwhelmed with joy. The system confirmed it. Through daily interaction and extreme happiness, she'd grasped a tiny bit of human language. 50 bonus points, bringing me to 440. Sherry mewed for attention. I scooped her up and kissed her too. She purred contentedly. Then Tilipy burst out of the tome, hands on hips, scolding me for cuddling without her. I kissed her cheek, total now 500 points. Then I noticed red juice around her mouth. Where's the fruit? Her eyes darted nervously. It flew into Tilipy's mouth by itself. There was nothing I could do. A fruit your own size flew into your mouth on its own. She burst into tears, dove into my chest, and started pounding me with her tiny fists, sobbing that I was a stupid, mean master, as if she was the victim here. She'd eaten my medicine and still had the nerve to cry about being caught. What upset Tilipy most was me doubting her. I checked her status in the tome and got a surprise. She'd jumped from silver 3-star to 4-star. Her status read, extremely upset, craving master's comfort. I pet her face and told her it was fine. I'd get another fruit. But she cried harder, little wings drooping, until I showered her with kisses and cuddles. She finally explained. The fruit really had flown into her mouth on its own. Some kind of resonance between her plant essence and the dragon blood. She hadn't fully absorbed it, though. She could pass small doses to me daily through her empowering petals. I decided to ask Phil about the resonance later. Each petal burned like fire going down. Combined with the dragon blood red obsidian already inside me, the reaction was intense. But I held on. 3 days of eating, sleeping, absorbing petals, and absolutely not touching any woman. I couldn't sleep a single night. On day 4, I finally went to Hea. She lasted 5 days before collapsing, calling me an ungrateful little beast. I felt refreshed. My body had transformed. My physical strength was now comparable to a bronze-rank knight. That's the benefit of resources. That's the benefit of being kept by the most powerful woman in the empire. I tried visiting Selena and Phil, but both were out on missions with their students. With nothing to do, I headed to the Cross Academy training platform for a random match. I appeared in a scorching desert, terrible terrain for my team. Then I saw 2 familiar faces, Mentor Sean and Roger. Sean smiled warmly at me, but I caught the contempt in his eyes. To him, I was an idiot who'd refused the Empress, a fool who'd never amount to anything. Roger had clearly been training hard since our last fight. He opened his silver tome and summoned his 3 pets, all visibly upgraded. The stone armor rhino was now bronze 9-star, with a flowing metallic sheen like mithril coating. The thunder marten was sleeker with dark purple arcs crackling around it. When the marten saw Sherry, a cat, it immediately hissed at her. Sherry glanced at it with complete indifference and looked away. That disdainful look basically said, "A creature of your level has no right to hiss at me." The marten exploded with rage, its purple-black lightning surging, and started hissing louder in what I can only call hiss language. Whatever it said enraged Sherry. She jumped down from my arms and hissed right back. Roger and I just stood there watching our 2 animals have a screaming match. Neither of us understood what they were arguing about, but it was genuinely entertaining. Then Sherry caught herself, trotted back to my feet, rubbed against my leg, and mewed sweetly, as if to assure me she was actually a proper lady. Roger looked almost jealous. His marten had never once acted cute around him. Sean recognized Sherry as a Northern Frost Phantom cat and commented that Phil's dowry was impressive. As fellow Academy mentors, he knew about our engagement. Roger demanded the fight be broadcast live to all students across every Imperial Academy. Night, magic, alchemy, art, politics, military. He wanted to crush me publicly and restore his reputation. Sean pretended to hesitate about privacy, but clearly wanted this too. I agreed instantly. I needed to build my reputation within the family, and beating a rival noble on live broadcast would do exactly that. The announcement went out across the entire Cross Academy platform. It had been years since anyone opened live viewing. Screens lit up with student comments immediately. Mostly girls gushing about my looks, arguing over which academy I belonged to, and one declaring she wanted to have my babies. Not a single comment mentioned Roger. He was furious. "Don't get too cocky, Ren Villaret," he screamed. The chat instantly mocked him for losing his composure. He was being humiliated before the fight even started. Sean reminded him to stay calm. Roger took a breath and ordered his stone armor rhino to charge. The beast roared and thundered toward me, wrapped in earth-colored energy, bronze 9-star now, even more terrifying than before. I couldn't stop it head-on, but I didn't need to. The rhino's target was me, not my pets, because Tillapi and Vivian could fly and Sherry was too agile for a bull to catch. I ordered Tillapi to cast Golden Guard on everyone, Vivian to prepare Thunderstorm, and Sherry to activate Winter's Shelter. The problem was the desert terrain. Water and ice elements were nearly non-existent here. Vivian was panting, struggling to form even a small thundercloud. It looked pathetic, tiny, wobbly, ready to dissolve in the hot wind. I gave her a reassuring look. But my body was different now. With dragon blood enhancing my physique to Bronze Knight level, I simply sidestepped the rhino's charge at the last moment. Meanwhile, Roger's Thunder Martin had flanked me, and his Steel Needle Eagle launched a barrage of metal needles. Sherry seized the opening. While the Martin was focused on me, she flash-stepped right in front of it. The Martin didn't expect that kind of speed from a cat. Before it could dodge, Sherry's claw came down, and this was no playful swat. Sherry's claw ripped a deep gash into the Thunder Martin's side, bone deep, but the wound froze over instantly from her ice power, so no blood flowed. The Martin screamed in a sound Roger had never heard before. The live chat exploded with viewers cheering for cute little Sherry. Roger was starting to wonder if his problem was simply that his pets weren't adorable enough. The Steel Needle Eagle fired another volley, but everything bounced off Tillapi's Golden Guard. The eagle was too scared to get close. It still remembered what Vivian had done to it last time. Then Roger revealed his new trump card. A white-silver tome opened and black miasma poured out, forming a 2-meter hunched figure made of rotting flesh and solidified darkness, and Dark Fog Corpse Ghost, Dark-type Silver 4-star. It spoke with hatred for the living, sneered at Tillapi's light element, and wanted to eat Sherry. Roger promised it anything it wanted in exchange for victory. The ghost warned that if Roger couldn't deliver, all his pets would die. The ghost possessed Roger's Steel Needle Eagle, fusing into its body. The eagle screamed and transformed into a corpse-winged demon bird, bigger, wreathed in black energy, with crimson glowing eyes. It launched a storm of poisoned feather arrows that corroded Tillapi's golden shields on contact. Thankfully, Vivian's star-bathing spirit rain could purify the dark corruption, keeping our defenses intact. Before I could plan my next move, Sherry bolted like an arrow, not at the eagle, but straight at Roger himself. She leaped at his throat, frost-glowing claws extended. Roger froze. He saw death coming. Sean intercepted at the last instant, putting his bare hand between Sherry's claws and Roger's neck. Her claws punched clean through Sean's palm. He flicked her away into my arms. Then his hand glowed gold and healed completely in seconds. Not even a scar remained. Gold rank, regeneration. Sean adjusted his glasses calmly and declared I'd won. The match result flashed across every screen in the Empire's Academy network. Victor, Ren Villaret. Roger was too shaken to protest. The chat mocked him for having zero presence the entire fight. I was stunned myself. That cat had nearly killed a noble student and pierced a gold rank contract master's defense. Sherry was far more dangerous than I'd realized. But the corpse ghost refused to accept the result. It screamed that it needed to eat Sherry to evolve to gold rank and attack me directly. Roger yelled at it to stop. The match was over, and injuring me would bring serious consequences. The ghost ignored him and cursed him as a weakling. Sean raised his hand. Sand rose from the desert floor and formed a massive fist that seized the possessed eagle, then ripped the ghost's spirit out of its body by force. The ghost shrieked in agony as the sand hand crushed and twisted it. A mere silver-rank ghost dares defy a contract and overrule my judgment. Sean's glasses flashed cold. My student has been too lenient with you. As his mentor, I'll help correct that. A golden tome appeared above Sean's head. raining light that condensed into a mage robe and staff on his body. This was Sean's true power, and for the first time, I was seeing a gold-rank contract master's serious combat form up close from the opposing side. Sean walked toward the corpse ghost with crushing pressure. "No, please, sir. I was wrong. Spare me." The ghost screamed, thrashing in the sand fist. Sean didn't waste words. He raised his staff and issued 3 commands. Decree, separate. The ghost's body split apart into black mist and rotting flesh. Decree, purify. White light burned both components to ash. Decree, restore. Everything reversed and reassembled, trapping the ghost in an endless loop of destruction and reconstruction. 3 simple commands, and the ghost was broken. The live chat went wild, analyzing Sean's true word staff. Clearly an order-type spirit pet, incredibly rare and powerful. I watched in awe and envy. Gold-rank contract masters were on another level entirely. These people chose to stay in the capital as academy mentors rather than rule provincial territories. That said everything about where real power concentrated in this empire. Back at my dorm, Haya was waiting. She flinched slightly when she saw me. 5 straight days of my dragon blood-enhanced stamina had left her traumatized. But she composed herself and started helping me change clothes. This time, she decided to inspect my condition first. Later at dinner, I brought up something that had been bothering me. I told Haya she'd done wonderfully, but there was one small issue I couldn't accept. She panicked, kissed my forehead, and asked what she'd done wrong. Her green eyes started watering. She thought I was saying she was too old. I quickly pulled her into my arms and clarified. Next time she needed to put out a fire, she should pay more attention to hygiene, because I had to kiss her every morning. She hit my chest and protested that I was the one who kept holding down the extinguisher's trigger, and she'd cleaned everything up afterward anyway. The 3 pets ignored our coded conversation and just kept eating. After dinner, I watched my pets and felt a headache forming. Tillapi and Vivian were playing together like sisters, chasing each other on cushions. But Sherry sat alone on the armrest closest to me, watching me with those mismatched eyes, wanting nothing to do with the other 2. Every time I glanced at her, she'd rub against my arm and mew sweetly. She had 0 interest in befriending her teammates. The internal rivalry was already showing. 3 females, 1 master. Sherry was today's MVP in the fight, but if I showed her too much attention, Tillapi and Vivian would resent her. I'd just seen what happens when a contracted pet disobeys its master. Roger's corpse ghost was a fresh reminder. I picked up Sherry. She immediately licked my face. Tillapi and Vivian instantly flew into my arms, demanding equal affection. Tillapi begged for cuddles. Vivian nuzzled my chest and licked my chin. I had to put Sherry down and rotate through all 3, kissing, hugging, petting each one. This was my daily life. 3 jealous spirit pets competing for every scrap of my attention. Other people might find it unimaginable, but for me it was an exhausting, adorable, nerve-wracking routine.